I think you ought to know about men's radio. The place where men and women really speak. Oh man, what a show. It's men's radio. This crazy show is on 3 times a week. Now Russ and Phil are there to help with all your cares. We laugh, we cry, we talk like grown-ups do. But if you're sad and low, it won't cost you no dough. Men's radio, that's the place for you. With Russ, Kane, and Phil Dave.
It's Friday.
Which means live coverage coming up. Live coverage from Phil's kitchen. This is Men's Radio Station. You can listen to us everywhere. Thank you so much for joining us for the 3-hour Friday show. So you can listen to us on www.mensradiostation.com. You can listen and see us on Twitter. You can listen and see us on Facebook, on my Facebook page, Phil's Facebook page, the Men's Radio Facebook page, and of course on our YouTube channel, which you just go to YouTube, Men's Radio Station, everything there. While you're there, it'll take you 3 seconds. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, because it really helps all of us at the team at Men's Radio Station. Thank you so very much.
I mean, I would suggest that in an ideal world, you don't literally hit it, because that might do you some harm. But if you could click on it, that'd be marvelous. You may also, by the way, be listening to us across Deluxe Radio or Radio Waves. Wherever you are listening, of course, you are most welcome. And thank you very much indeed.
And very interestingly, yesterday when I was doing the ABC of CBD with the fantastic Ollie Mammon and the Tincture Club, which all of you seem to be loving, which is nice. Thank you so much. Of course, we're on about something like 30 other digital platforms. Yes, about 30, because Ollie keeps getting messages from the most obscure things like, oh, haven't mentioned it to you, Ollie, but we've been watching you for the last 6 months. Love the ABC of CBD. Greetings from Kentucky. What the hell? So it's really very interesting. It's very interesting the way that it gets sent out. Although, go on.
I didn't know the restaurants were allowed to be open.
Yeah. Just in the drive-through, the ABC of CBDs just play this. You drive through and say, "I'll have an extra buckety chicken, please," and they go, "There you go." And like loads of people saying hello, loads. Boy, it's busy today.
Why did they
busy on the lines? Come on.
Why are they listening in Norfolk?
I hate you, Francine Warner, Hampson Men, Linda Dave. Do you know her? No. God, Linda, not mine gets past you, does it? Hi, guys, it's Friday. She is mustard.
No, she's repeating what I say. It's Friday.
No, I know that. I was just being silly. Sue Sweet, hi, guys. Hope everyone has a good week. Andrea Lucas.
Thank you, baked potato.
Yeah, you love the introduction. Morning back to in your usual homes. Kind of. Do-a diddy. Diddy-dum, diddy-do, says Ed Grossman, who seemed to be the subject of some conversation yesterday at luncheon.
Emma Webb says, happy Friday and happy holiday. Thank you, Emma.
What's the holiday?
It is a holiday.
Oh, holiday. Genius. It's absolutely genius. I wonder what they're making of it on Deluxe Radio, what they make of the show, because when you and I are pausing and looking at each other and pulling silly faces, etc., it's just radio silence, isn't it? It's amazing.
Well,
just radio silence.
But then I'm hoping that would encourage them a little more to actually watch the program, which of course you can do. If it's not too late, if you have just tuned in, do go to our Facebook, YouTube or Twitter. And not only will you be able to hear us, you'll be able to witness us in Technicolor glory.
Yeah, we can only apologise in advance. Phil always looks extreme. What are you wearing today? You've got studs on your shirt.
Well, I'd run out of black shirt because I've been wearing black all week.
Yeah, you have, because the official 8 days of mourning, correct.
I've run out of black shirts, I'm afraid. So, I mean, which may be delightful to some people around Cable Street. But unfortunately...
you beat me to that.
It doesn't really work. It doesn't really work so well when we are in a national state of mourning. So, I mean, I'm afraid that I'm sort of just on the last one. So this shirt here is one that I used to wear in clubbing days, which actually has little sort of studs on them, which I appreciate is not ideal, not least of all because half the studs have dropped off. That goes to the quality.
That was all the women grabbing your manly chest and going, I don't know who you are, you virile bastard, but I want you and I want you now. Those are your clubbing days.
Well, I mean, if you say that, I mean, I think it was more a case of brushing up some obese individual who just was in the way of the bar. That's probably more likely to be the case.
And Philip, let's spread a little bit of light. Let's put an ever-ready torch on you. Where the hell did you go clubbing?
Oh, right. Where did I go clubbing? Okay. Well, okay. So one of my favorite places is actually around
Golders Green Station.
Yes, is around Tottenham Court Road. Ed, that is without a shadow of a doubt the nicest thing you've ever said to me. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah.
Ed, I love that shirt. Thank you. And around Tottenham Court Road, in one of the back roads, don't get too suspicious. There is a bar called Troy 22. Now, Troy 22 can only be described as a dive bar. It's very, very pokey. And when I say pokey, I mean, right, okay, I know where you are at the moment. I want you to look at the space you've got around you.
Nice.
Double it, and that is the size of Troy 22.
Blimey, O'Reilly.
It's a really, really pokey little bar, but I can only describe it a little bit as though it's like dancing or partying in someone's living room. And it's on the first floor of this old terrace building. And someone has just taken what must have been, I don't know, maybe a part of a house or an office or something like that.
Kitchen cupboard.
Decided to turn it into a bar. But what I particularly like about this bar is that they play 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s music nonstop. It is fantastic. It's such a great atmosphere. There is only one thing that lets it down. The facilities are foul. So I deliberately don't drink very much when I'm there. But other than that,
especially you, because when you go out, you are dropping Jaeger bombs followed by several pints. When you're a 12 pint a night man, and this is where it all goes wrong.
I mean, I should stress that despite my efforts on Monday, I'm normally able to handle a little more than 1 dram, but I didn't realize that I was taking a 50% alcohol dram at that stage. But even so,
Kimmy Lashmar, you're so clever. A dive bar in a West End town called the Please There's a Madman Around. West End goes. West End. Very good, Kimmy. You get the lyrics for that. Ed Grossman says, Phil, I love dive bars. Can we meet up there?
Ed, come on.
On your head, Ed, be it. On your head. Now, sad for Ramsey. Ramsey Wymersalem. Hi all. Sadly, I'm only here for a bit today. I could only dream, Waxy. Oh, I misunderstood. Gonna miss Chantal, which deeply saddens me.
Do you know what, Ramsey? You can always watch it again.
You're genius.
The videos are available indefinitely right across our social media platforms.
Absolutely. And just as I said, and I will plug it, we've got earthquake. I'm back in San Francisco. If you go to the YouTube channel, as I said, all the videos are up there. You can watch at your leisure. Lloyd Beanie, love the T-shirt, Russ. Where'd you get it? I can't remember, Lloyd. Isn't this weird? Because if you look, it says Beanie, Kane and Vinyl. What a coincidence. And his name is Lloyd Beanie. How does that work? Magic.
I have heard of snappier designer brands, I can't deny. But at the same time,
this is the Abercrombie and Fitch of the 21st century, baby.
Well, you know what? People used to think Hollister was a weird name at first. So frankly, I strongly suspect that could catch on without you realizing.
It could be huge, especially when they see us and realize what virile, fine, strutting male specimens the 3 of us are. We got soaked. So, morning, T Green. La, 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 la. Right. A little bit of vocal coaching for you, please. T Green, one of the finest vocal coaches in the United Kingdom. Seriously. And you know that song, Stay Now, Stay Another Day. Oh, it's all convey. Please don't go away. Whatever it was by E17. That's all T. That's T doing all the vocals on that. And we're certainly doing all the harmonies.
Richard Todd says, sorry I'm late. Just been on the phone to the council for an hour, asking them if I need a permit to have a skip outside my house. They said no, but if I want to play hopscotch, I'll be in trouble. Aren't councils funny?
Richard Todd. I don't know if he was kidding. I thought you did need a permit. No, you don't need a permit for a skip, but you do. One of the first law cases I ever read, when in my days in a rather bad career, was that they didn't have a warning light on it, and somebody was driving down a suburban street, went straight into the skip, and it turned out that the people who owned the house, whose skip was outside, they were liable. Oh my God. Steve Harris, who's in Hamburg, in Germany. Good morning, guys. I just had root canal procedure. German dentists are like BMWs, top-notch, comfortable and fast. But presumably German dentists therefore never bother to indicate if they're walking left or right. They just pull out in front of you, don't give a shit, and give you the finger.
They just pull out a tooth and hope for the best.
Ed
Could be on the right. Who knows?
Grossman, folks have gone to jail for gags like that. I thought it was quite a sweet thing. Anyway, Steve Harris over in Hamburg, Germany. I hope you're feeling, this is like BFPO 22, two-way family favourites, Cliff Mitchellmore. Now, here we go. Oh, my God. Where we go? Oh, my gosh. Big news just in from Mr. Dave Sleet. Do you care to read it? This is marvellous news.
Well, here you go. Dave Sleet says, I'm delighted to confirm, and we didn't know this, by the way.
No, we didn't. I'm saying this for the first time. Breaking news.
Men's and women's radio stations have been nominated for an APA E&P 2020 Vision Award. Thank you. Good Lord. If the crowd were here, I suspect they'd be going wild. Thank you.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Right. Do you know what I found myself doing? Oh, yeah. First of all, about the T-shirt, right?
Uh-oh.
So
I'm in trouble.
Now what? Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. Oh, Phil. Saying you didn't care was a bit harsh the other day.
Yeah, well, you better deal with this, boy.
Well, Lisa,
your broadcasting prowess gets you out of this poo-poo.
Lisa, allow me to, in front of everyone right here, right now, humbly apologize for telling the truth. Anyway, well, let's move.
Christ.
No, I'm kidding.
Twat. Lisa, don't take it any further, for God's sake. What did that? Shut up, Andrea.
What are those initials? You're joking. I was difficult enough getting through the initials. You don't really want me to find out the full name, do you?
Dave Sleet will now send us a message. Mr. Sleet, send a message so all the great and the good can know what all the... Oh, another one's come on. Larry Viner loved the T-shirt. Now, this is weird. This is almost psychic because somebody called Lloyd Beanie, I don't know him, and then there's Beanie on my shirt, and then somebody called Larry Viner. Is it Viner or Viner? I don't know. Larry Viner, and it says Beanie, Kane, and Viner. What are the chances?
Now
it's bordering on the supernatural.
Coming up on today's program, a little later on today,
Here we go. No, hang on. Here's the initials. This is what it stands for. We cannot answer everybody's question. ANA Psychological Accreditation, which is APA. E&P Ethical and Psychological. BAGEL, it's what Phil eats. Okay. Thank you, Dave Sleet, for that. I will be speaking to you after 2 o'clock for something we're doing tomorrow that I have lumbered myself with. You know when you say yes to things, Phil, and you think, oh yeah, I said yes. That's ages and ages. And suddenly the ages is suddenly tomorrow.
Oh yes.
And I looked at a load of information, loads of big PowerPoint slides. It all looks fantastic. And then my heart hit my Doc Martin boots when it said keynote speaker Russ Kane. It's a live conference. It's a live conference to New York.
Whatsoever for talking.
Yeah, you're very sweet. You're very sweet. But it's a live conference to New York, basically the New York Fire Department and New York police officers, essentially, and emergency service people, live from New York. And I appear to be the keynote speaker. Smiling is for wimps. What the hell's that? Oh, yes. Steve Harris, is that Smiling Lord Viner? Smiling is for wimps. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, you were saying, Philip.
Lisa
And
is
don't forget, do we have a guest in the
in the waiting in the wings, yes, indeed, waiting in the digital green room. So fear not, Amanda. We're coming to you in just a second. Don't you worry. But anyway, but Lisa says, and she's being very generous here. She's first of all, she's being generous because she's given me 2 L's. She says, Phil, only joking. And this is incredibly nice to hear. You two were my rock. Thank you. I had never spoken publicly before and could probably hear how nervous and upset I was. It helped so much.
Oh,
Lisa, that genuinely means more than you could possibly realize. So thank you very much.
I don't think people understand that what it means to us when we get a message like that. It just reinforces the ethos of Men's Radio Station. You know, why it was started in January 2019 with myself and the lovely Howard Jameson, who is, you know, very low key, and you'll never see him because that's how he is. And, you know, he's a very quiet fellow. And it means so much. Thank you. And please feel free. Do what Lisa does. You know, the phone number is always scrolling across. If you don't want to be in vision, and let's face it, most of you are egomaniacs, of course you do. But if you don't want to be in vision, just phone and you can chat to us any time. And by the way, where was Sue Cressman's comment? Because she looks like she's the busiest person in the world. Sue Cressman, hello, boys. I'm doing a lot of business meetings. I'm doing a lot of business meetings today, but we'll tune in as long as possible. We should have had BBC with us again, but they cancelled again.
Wow.
There you go. And you're paying for that, Lisa. You're paying for that, Sue, of course, obviously. There we go. Right. Okie dokie, Mr. Nightclub Shirt.
Coming up at midday today, we are going to be talking about hypnosis. And that is with Keith Tunstall, who appears to have, can I just say, the largest collection of letters after his name
I've never seen anything like it.
So next year, he'll go back for the rest of the alphabet. But to give him his full title, Keith Tunstall, MIB, WRT, accredited. There you go.
And member of Blockbusters Video Club.
There you go. Apparently, that is, by the way, an accredited member of the Institute of Brainworking Recursive Therapy. There you go. Now, we're also going to
make that up.
No, genuinely, that's what it stands for.
Right,
we are going
to,
later on as well. So the lovely Chantal Ricard, she'll join us around 1:30 to offer us some suggestions of what's on the box. So there we go. They are coming up later, but first, it is time to welcome our first guest. And I don't know whether or not you are aware of
Sue Cressman's comment.
Oh, right. I don't know if you're aware of a day called Blue Umbrella Day. Now, it is the first International Awareness Day for protecting boys from sexual violence. So we are going to turn our attention to something very serious right now, which is quite unusual.
Just a bit.
Really, really thrilled to say, not necessarily for the reason behind it, but very thrilled to say that joining us now is the Chief Executive of Family for Every Child, Amanda Griffith. Amanda, thank you for speaking to us. Welcome to Men's Radio Station, The Daily Show with Russ, Kane, and with me, Phil Dave. First and foremost, okay, this is obviously a new initiative. We're going to talk about that. Could you just tell us a little bit about Family for Every Child, just in case someone hasn't heard of your amazing organization?
Yeah, of course. And thank you both for inviting us on. Hi,
pleasure.
Russ. Hi, Phil. So Family for Every Child is a really sort of different way of approaching international collaboration. It's a global alliance of local civil society organizations. So organizations all around the world who are real thought leaders, really social activists, really entrepreneurial thinkers, working directly with families and children. And they're really looking to prevent unnecessary separation of children from their families, protecting children outside of any family care, and ensuring that where necessary, children are in safe and caring environments. So that's what the work we do. And we currently have 42 members in different parts of the globe, 38 countries.
When did you start this, Amanda?
So it started in 2011. and we really went fully independent. We were supported by another organisation to set ourselves up, and we went fully independent in 2014. And we are an organisation that is led by those local civil society organisations. So they're the leaders of the organisation, and they're looking to make changes globally as well as at a national level where they work currently.
What's the idea of the title Blue Umbrella Day? What is that?
Okay.
It's very catchy, but what's the significance?
So the 4 of our members in different parts of the world, in Philippines, Cambodia, Nepal and India, recognized that some of the work that they were doing, particularly those working with vulnerable young men and boys, were finding that there was a really high incidence of sexual violence, but that nobody was responding to it, and boys were very nervous about reporting about it. So it was a very hidden, taboo topic. And they wanted to do a campaign to raise the awareness of the issue, and particularly sort of address things about social norms, because they felt that was where it was coming from, was social norms about masculinity, sexuality and gender. So the idea was, how do you actually create protection for boys, because that's felt to be one of the crucial things. So hence the umbrella, and obviously blue because this is about gender. So this is saying that there's a lot of services and awareness, needs to be more obviously for girls, but in fact it seemed to be that for lots of reasons the issue for sexual violence against boys was not being given the same visibility and the same support and protection.
And it's obviously very difficult to talk about this subject without sounding vulgar or crude or anything like that, but so please forgive me if I come across like that. But the reason why I asked the next question will become obvious. Does that abuse come from anywhere in particular? Are we talking about from home life, from school life? Where are we talking about? And I'll tell you why I asked that in a second.
Yeah, so it happens to all, it potentially happens to all boys and in all settings, but there are obviously some that are more risk. So, I mean, the current statistics, and that, it is only a number. We don't know whether that's the full thing, but the estimate, it's 1 in 6 boys. So we're not talking about a small number there. We're talking about
1 in 6.
1 in 6 boys, 1 in 4 girls, and 1 in 6 boys. It's an incredibly high statistic.
1 in 4 girls.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, we're not talking about a small issue here. We're talking about
this
really
is absolutely monumentally huge.
Yeah. And it'll happen in the home. It may happen with people that they know. I mean, as you'll know from issues that have been recently in the media in the UK, it will happen in boarding schools, it will happen in residential settings, it will happen with football coaches. I mean, it can happen in all sorts of environments. There are some children that are more at risk of it, those that are street-connected children, children with disabilities, those in residential settings, children on the move. So children who are migrating are obviously much more highly vulnerable to sexual violence and abuse, but it does happen everywhere, and with all children are vulnerable.
Okay, so the reason for my asking where is because I suppose I wanted to sort of get an understanding of how your organization even makes an attempt to try and put a stop to this. Is this just through raising awareness so that people are more aware that this goes on around them, as opposed to actually sort of diving into these different places that it goes on and trying to put a stop to it, if you see what I mean?
So there's a range of responses that we're looking for. I mean, one is even at a basic level of legislation, because in some countries it's not even against the law for boys, violence against boys. It's not recognized as rape, whereas for girls it is. So, for example, in the Philippines, they recently changed the legislation because of our member there doing advocacy on that. So they changed to recognize that this is also sexual abuse against boys as rape. In Zimbabwe, that's not currently the case in legislation. It is in other countries. But also,
so how do they, I'm sorry to jump in, but I'm a little confused and confounded. It's not against the law to commit these acts.
In some countries, it's not recognized, because it's not recognized that it happens to boys. It's so taboo that actually there's no recognition.
So it's just seen as, this is a law that we don't need because the problem doesn't even exist. Is that the view?
In part, it's not that it doesn't exist, and in part, it's seen that it's not as big a problem for boys as it is to girls, because part of the way that people think about it is the risk is that girls will get pregnant. But the perception of boys is, well, boys are brave and courageous and they can look after themselves. They don't need the same level of protection. So there's a whole sort of construct about masculinity in boys, which means that it's not seen as big as an issue. Although we know that for boys, it has huge impact, not just physically, but psychologically, and have really long-term damage to
It's presumably
them.
lifelong damage, isn't it?
It can be, absolutely. And I think we've heard that from the reports of those that have been brave enough to speak out about their own sexual abuse, much older once they're adults, and talking about how it's had a long-term impact on them in terms of their relationships with others, in terms of suicidal feelings, in terms of confidence, in terms of psychological trauma. That, I mean, it can have really significant long-term impact. Absolutely.
Would it be the case that the people who were victims then become perpetrators?
So there's not a natural correlation between that at all. What can happen, and this is where there's some complexity, is that it's when there's things like grooming, and therefore the child doesn't actually know that it's an offence. They actually are brought into. So as you know, a lot of this happens increasingly online in terms of grooming, and that the child is therefore told that this is a safe and pleasurable experience, and then they're brought into harmful sexual behavior. But there's not a direct correlation. I mean, it's really important that we see sexual abuse as sexual abuse and focus on the need to protect children, and also to look into the issues of how young boys are exposed to sex. So, for example, in many countries, there is no sex education in schools or in the family. So the young boys learn it through pornography and things online. So they already have a fairly distorted view of what sex and relationships are. So there's various external factors, but I would sort of push back and say it's really important that we don't see this as a sort of cause and effect relationship between the two.
Okay. Now, Glassy Amanda, who is deals with this comes under her umbrella. She's one of our listeners. Says this also: boys have other major issues with this in feeling they should have been strong enough to stop the abuse.
Absolutely. This is the thing about masculinity, is that boys should be brave. So the impact of it, why boys often don't report, is they either feel there's confusion about sort of heterosexuality and homosexuality, and also in countries where homosexuality is a bit taboo, then children are very nervous about what they're going to say, but also that their peers and their families will say, well, you should have been stronger, you should have dealt with this, whereas they would never say that to a girl. So that's why boys feel that they can't report, because they don't get the same reaction from people. They don't get that immediate sort of protection and people then advocating and supporting them. They get told in a way that they're in part responsible for it. That absolutely is what boys report.
What sort of age group?
I was just going to say, with the label boys, what age range are we talking about here?
So unfortunately, I mean, it can go down to, we know of instances as young as 2 years old, going right up to the age of 18. So, I mean, so this is something that happens across the age spectrum. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Which begs the question. I mean, I'm just feeling a bit physically sick here, to be frank with you, Amanda. It's disgusting, revolting, repellent, and horrible on every single level you could possibly think of. But a 2-year-old, just go to the extreme of this repulsive situation, has no recourse. They're 2, they're a baby, aren't they? So unless the mother does something, nothing's going to happen.
Or the father. Yeah, but yes, absolutely. And that is why we feel that this whole thing needs to have much greater exposure, because it's really important that the community around the child is aware of the fact that this can happen, because for so many communities and families, they just don't recognize that it's happened, that it's possible. So there's no environment for the child to disclose and report that it's happened. So it's really crucial that families and communities become aware of the fact that this is happening, and therefore that also that children desperately need to be protected, that then the boys need to be able to report, and then they need services in the same way as girls receive, to be able to heal.
Are those services? Go on, Phil.
As I say, one of the issues, of course, now as well, is that we seem to live in an age where the lines are, I think, are far more blurred than they ever were before. And we accuse people of acts that, frankly, they've not committed. We've seen many examples of this in the news with people who have been named and some who haven't even been named, and it ruins their lives, frankly.
Yeah.
But for some reason, we found ourselves in a position where as soon as someone cries out the word abuse, they are automatically believed. Now, that does not mean to say that those who genuinely are being abused shouldn't be taken absolutely seriously and given every single second of help that they need. But it's quite hard to determine where abuse begins and where lies start, if you see what I mean.
So in all of our research with children is that this isn't something children lie about, because it's not something that they would even conceive of unless it had happened. And when they give the facts demonstrate that this is something that's occurred. It isn't something that children fantasize about. This is something. So in reality, it would be very unfortunate if people tended to think, and that is often the reaction to children is whether you're lying or you're fantasizing or you're making it up, and it absolutely isn't the case in the vast majority of cases. Particularly children don't fantasize about something like that, and they wouldn't want to engage in reporting on something like that. These are children that have had traumatic experiences that they've had to be brave enough to disclose, and therefore need support and understanding and to be believed in that process.
I was going to say, I mean, as if what they've been through isn't enough to then have someone turn around and say, no, you're lying. That must be even more hell.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'd like to read some of the comments from people watching and listening to this, if I may. Then you can have your reaction to it. Andrea Lucas, and it can leave them with mental health issues in later life. I think we would all agree on that. Ed Grossman makes a very interesting point. Back in my day, a long time back, we had the same issues, but it wasn't called abuse, and there was zero sex education. We all thought it was 100% normal. Very few schools escaped it.
Yes.
And then finally, Andrea Lucas comes back, but it could be the mother or another female person. It doesn't always happen with a male on male, which is a very valid point.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. In the research that we've done, sometimes it is women, predominantly men, but sometimes absolutely it's women that are engaged in this abuse. And this idea that it's normal, that's what we're finding in other countries, whereby things have not become so that there isn't that level of understanding, experience and exposure as we have in the UK. It is certainly seen as it's normal and just put up with it and live with it. Unfortunately, that is very much the case. Yeah.
This is nice from Glassy Amanda. This is a pat on your back, Amanda Griffith. You're doing amazing work, Amanda. I'm very moved by what you're doing, even though sadly I work in this area a lot. So you're resonating. Great. Now my question to you is this: what happens really if the child? I'm trying to think how this would be stopped. So you're trying to open the corridors to say that it's not normal and you can report it. But at what age does the child have the wherewithal? I mean, walk me through the mechanics of how it would be addressed and complained about and reported.
Sure. So certainly schools have a huge role to play in this. So teachers being aware of the issue and being able to read the signs, because often you will find that a child that's gone through a traumatic experience will start to disengage from education. They will have certain behaviors, sort of like sleeping badly, regression into bedwetting. There'll be all sorts of indicators of something, or they'll become much quieter and removed, or they may become more boisterous and badly behaved. So there will be indicators that something's happened in this child's life. And then what you need is a supportive environment in which that is explored with the child without sort of and giving the child the safety for them to disclose, but also crucially, the safety for that child after they've disclosed, so that there isn't any secondary abuse or they're not then pulled into really difficult legal procedures and things. So making it a safe place for disclosure, making sure there's really strong justice system in place for action to be taken, so that children can see that action is taken and that perpetrator is removed, rather than continuing to perpetrate against other children. But the importance of the family and the community is crucial for that safety. But also it's about sex education in schools, so that the children themselves are given awareness about these things, are given the skills to understand what is harmful behavior, for them to have in place the skills to resist or protect themselves, but not to expose themselves to risky situations. And then there has to be the awareness of through the legislation of the judiciary system and things. So it's a multifaceted approach that needs to happen. But for us, the very start point and the point of the Blue Umbrella campaign is people need to be aware of it happening and the sheer scale of it, and then the momentum that can come to putting in place responses to that.
How did
As
you
the
first
glassy Amanda comes back. Oh,
get
sorry, go
work,
on.
Amanda? So because this is not. Look, don't answer this if this is something that you've been personally affected by, but how did you get involved in this line of work? Because I have to be honest, being so ignorant about this topic, it's something that doesn't even cross my mind. You know, I wouldn't even think of choosing this as a career path.
Right. Gosh, you're going back a long way. I started in this world 40 years ago. And it was really simple. I wanted to work with children who others were marginalizing, who were disadvantaged, who were really starting to move into crime, and that they were therefore being seen as criminals rather than children that need protected. So wanting to shift the emphasis from seeing children with delinquent behavior, difficult behavior, and saying, actually, this is about something else that's going on here. It's not a criminal action. This is about children needing greater care and protection. So that's where I started, was in the whole issue of caring for what was at the point young adolescent boys who were starting to fall into.
I'm guessing you must see the rewards of your labor. You must have changed so many lives, and I can only imagine what that feeling must be like.
Yes, but you also recognize the scale of the work still to be done. So which is what drives me, is to ensure that this is even greater awareness. There is so much still to do in all of this. And the beauty of the Family for Every Child is that we're starting to work in, because I started just working in the UK, but now being able to engage similar activists in different parts of the world. That's what's so inspiring, is that the work that they're doing. So, you know, this was stimulated, this whole idea was stimulated by 4 women, one in Paraguay, one in the Philippines, one in India, and one in Guyana, who we work with. And they came together and said, this is an issue, we need to address it. And they've developed the whole initiative around the campaign. It's brilliant.
It's very impressive. Some very interesting comments coming in. Dave Sleet, the avoidance of red flagging that child to their peers is also crucial.
Yes, really true.
Can you
really true.
could you expand on that, Amanda?
Yeah, well, so the peer response can be really damaging. So if your peers start to say, oh, but then, you know, you're to blame, or you're really weak, or how did you get yourself into that situation, or start to put name calling and blaming the child, then the child is going to regress even further and get into even more of a traumatic situation. So that the reaction of your peers can often be really negative. And the thing that children therefore don't report on, because they are very worried about, they will be ostracized by their peers for what's happened to them.
Right, I get that. Now this sort of thing makes me both utterly depressed and furious simultaneously. From Glassy Amanda, who works in a similar field to yourself. I worked with a 7-year-old who'd been sexually abused. Their abuser went to prison and then on release was allowed back in the home. What the actual...
Yeah, I know.
But how can that... It goes against everything that any decent human would do. Why is that allowed?
Oh, well, I'm not answerable for
No. I obviously,
I'm
not asking you to comment on that specific case.
Yeah.
I just find it. Let's just broaden the conversation. I'm just
absolutely.
stunned that someone who's been found guilty goes to jail. Yeah, go back to the house. What's the worst that can happen? Well, we know what the worst can happen. Is that a common occurrence?
No, that's not a common. But then, of course, in many countries, don't forget, actually, very few people get charged with this. There isn't a process in place for them being charged and going to prison in the first place. So the risks of the child are even greater, because they may not be removed from the perpetrator, and there may be no mechanisms for dealing with that perpetrator. So at least in this country, there is recourse.
Bonkers.
Amanda, we could talk to you about this all morning, and we definitely want to talk more. So will you please come back, because the only reason we're moving on is because our next guest has very patiently been waiting in the digital green room, and I'm very aware we've got him on borrowed time as well. So with that in mind, where do people go for more information?
So we've got a website up now called www.blueumbrella. Let me get it right. blueumbrelladay.org. So if they go to the blueumbrelladay.org, they will get all sorts of information about how to take forward this campaign.
Amazing work you do, Amanda. Thank you so much.
Thank you both very much indeed for giving us.
Thank you so much. I hope you'll come back and see us. There's a lot.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Take care. Bye bye bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Good grief.
Also, Wowzer, Ballad and Cowser. That was, yeah, boy, oh boy.
Wow.
Horrible.
Okay.
Just absolutely. Look at this. Diane Taylor's just come in. I know we've got another guest it's a very busy day today. And I wanted Ed Grossman's question. We're going to have to ask her another time, Ed. Sorry, we ran out of time. Diane Taylor, my daughter, who is learning disabled, was assaulted, oh my God, on 2 separate occasions. But because she cannot make a statement nor swear on oath in court because of her disability, there could be no action taken.
Good Lord.
What the hell? Diane, I am so sorry.
Gracious me. I'm sorry. Clearly you've been living a life wrapped in cotton wool. I had no idea. Seriously, no idea.
Don't you feel, Phil, when we get a brilliant guest, like all our guests are fantastic, but that's why they're here. But when it's like pulling up a rock, you think you've got a charming rockery in your garden, like I did when I was a little kid, and you pull it up and you look underneath and you go, Jesus Christ. And because you don't see it, you're not aware of it. If it hasn't happened to you, fortunately, it's such a shock.
That is for sure.
A shock, Phil, isn't it?
It's unbelievable. You are listening to The Daily Show with Russ, Kane and Phil Dave, live on Men's Radio through until 2:00 this afternoon. And we are obviously broadcasting to you in all the usual places across Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Deluxe Radio, Radio Waves, mensradiostation.com, and the Men's at Radio Station. Wherever you are listening, you are most welcome. Here is a thought for you. Parents fearing the impact of COVID on their children's career decisions. Is that something that we've even thought of in and amongst everything that's gone on in the pandemic in the last year or just over a year? Was that even something that crossed our minds? Well, it's certainly something that has crossed the mind of our next guest. Simon Hamilton is from, now I'm hoping I'm saying this right because it could be pronounced a couple of ways, but I'm going to guess it's Avado Fast Futures. Is that right? There, right. I got a thumbs up. Simon, a very warm welcome to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining Russ and I on The Daily Show. First and foremost, let's start off with Avado Fast Futures. What do you guys do?
So Fast Futures is an online digital skills and mentoring program that we set up last year at the beginning of the pandemic because we realised quite early on that there was going to be quite a severe impact on young careers, those people that were going through A-levels and leaving university. Obviously, businesses struggling to deal with the impact of COVID last year. Cutting opportunities, work experience opportunities, apprenticeships, graduate roles. And so we felt as an online learning business that we should do something to help negate that impact. So we put the program together in partnership with a load of UK employers, so big employers like BT, Barclays, AstraZeneca, who fund the program so that we can give a training program, a mentoring program for young people to help them to get the work experience they need and to help them become more employable in the backdrop of the pandemic.
Now, Simon, all I've heard, I don't know about you, but all I've heard over this last year is, oh, we're ruining young people's futures. What are we doing? How can we react in this way? But I have to tell you, I'm quite convinced that everybody has lost a year this last year, no matter what age you are.
Yeah.
But I'm perfectly sure you're going to tell me the reason why young people are more affected potentially. What's your experience, and why would you say that is the case potentially, if indeed you will?
Yeah, I think it is because obviously at the beginning of the pandemic, there was so much uncertainty as to what is going on. And actually, there's about 800,000 odd, probably more actually, students that were due to graduate during that period with an even
Yep.
bigger level of uncertainty. You know, everybody has job uncertainty. I had job uncertainty at that point, but the impact was due to be substantial on early careers, which is why we particularly focused on that area as a response. And actually, that situation's not gotten any better, unfortunately, this year. Youth unemployment is at a record high amongst, obviously, it's a sad time for everybody that is unemployed, but youth unemployment in particular has been impacted. And that is why we put this program together, particularly for 18 to 24-year-olds.
Well,
One of
because
the
of course,
things,
unemployment is sorry, Ross.
one of the things I would like to say, and I'm quite happy to say publicly, is that I think the pastoral care at universities for students, I'm not going to deal with schools, but with universities, the pastoral care there has been diabolical, absolutely bloody disgraceful. And they have been happy to take the money, they've not gone the extra mile, and they've let these kids flounder, and I'm furious about it. And if I had the time and the ability, I would really go on the offensive about it, because they've just let these kids blow in the wind, and it's awful, absolutely awful. But they're very happy to take the money, which is just sucks. Have you had any experience with that? I mean, you personally, but does your company have any sort of remit at the way that the kids are being dealt with at university?
We don't have any direct response for that, but what we do hear often from, and we did some research on this, we do hear that over the last year that parents, 1 in 3 parents, feel that their kids that have gone through the education system haven't had the level of support that they need. And so, you know, that's fallen onto the parents themselves that are not careers advisors. So they're having to pick up that role and support their kids in their career choices.
They don't seem
Now,
to, I honestly think they don't seem to care. I'm sorry, it's a huge issue with me. I just don't think they care. They've turned them into factories, and it's not factories. We're dealing with our children, which are the most precious things to us, next to our dogs, obviously. And it's the way that they're being treated is appalling, and it's a disgrace. And I hope eventually it gets looked into. All right, Phil, you had a question.
of course, one of the issues when it comes to young people and job market is that normally first rung on the ladder is either retail or hospitality. And of course, what are the two industries that have been probably impacted the most over the past year has got to be retail and hospitality. Certainly hospitality has.
Good
So
point.
it's not really a surprise. What are young people doing as an alternative? What are the alternatives that, say, your company is advising them to look at if hospitality isn't out there at the moment?
Yeah, we put this program together actually to give a broad experience, a broad work experience. It consists of a number of topics. We did some research with employers that back it, and we basically said to them, what skills are you lacking at the moment with young talent coming into your organizations? They told us it was digital skills, things like data analysis, data science, digital skills, some of the basic things like communication skills. So we put that program together to give a work experience around those skills, but also build in some mentoring to help the development of young people as well.
I'd like to ask you a question, if I could, Simon. And if you're not able to answer it, I totally understand. The big debate is when you're a kid and you finish your A-levels, let's just say, and there's loads of various permutations, just stay with me on this. So you've done your A-levels and you have the chance to go to university, or somehow you've managed to get a job, a proper, I don't mean like a temporary job working in a shoe shop. I mean something that you could have a career path. You're in that field. What would, I'm not going to say what I would say. Do you think they should go to university or grab the job and get on the ladder? Or will they be hindered from future work because they don't have a degree?
It's an interesting one, actually, because the traditional view is it's quite a linear process. It certainly was when I was trying to make those decisions. You finish school, you do your A-levels, or you go to college, sixth form, you go on to university, you go into a grad role, and that's how you get into the profession that you want to be in. But actually, it's not like that anymore. There's a lot of different opportunities around there. There are apprenticeships, which are a very valid alternative to going to university and still getting the same experience and the same qualification. What we do at Fast Futures, particularly for the A-level age, you might not know what career you want to go in at that point. I certainly didn't, and I don't know whether you guys knew what you wanted to do when you were at that age. But what we do is we give a flavour of different opportunities. We've got loads of different organisations on board that can sort of help somebody understand what career field that they want to go in. And I think there's lots of opportunities like this. There's lots of training opportunities around, and there's different routes to where you want to get to. So I think it's worthwhile having a look into the different options that you've got available to you, rather than thinking, okay, I need to go to university, or I have to take this job role right now because that's where
It's
I need
very,
to
very hard. Excuse me 1 second.
He's probably going to go and let the dogs out. Whilst he's letting the dogs out, what I don't understand is, and this, I know this sound a bit cliche to say I blame the parents, but where are the parents in all of this? Why does it take someone like your company to advise young people? Surely there must be some sort of
guide. Phil, spoken as someone without kids, because it's so beyond our. It's such a jungle out there. I'm sorry, Simon, I'm just jumping in to defend you. It's such a freaking jungle out there, and you don't know what the best advice is, as I can personally attest, to give your kids. You want to do the best for them. You love them more than life itself. You want them to be happy. You don't want them to make the same stupid mistakes that you made, and yet you think, well, I don't know which way I should jump on this.
Could it be that young people aren't getting enough credit?
I think it's a mix of things, actually. You are right, Russ. It's a jungle out there. Where do you find the information to be able to properly support your child when they're asking questions about what careers and they don't know themselves?
All right. Well, where did you find it? Do you know what I mean? Sorry, Simon. I don't mean you personally, but what I mean is that everyone has to look for it at some stage.
Yeah, I had a careers advisor. Now I know those roles aren't as well funded as they used to be a long time ago when I was looking to understand what I want to do in my field. But there are places to go to online, though. There are sites like National Career Service which can give that support. There is National Careers Week, which we launched Fast Futures in, which has tons of resources on it, both for young people and for parents as well. So there are resources out there. I guess my advice on that would be go and have a Google, have a look, see what you can find online, listen to your child, of what they're saying, what they think they might be interested in, and just try and support them as best as possible.
You see, the reason why I bring this up is because what annoys me more than anything is that, first and foremost, I'm a great believer that most people are treated as incapable of making their own minds up in this day and age, which really winds me up. It's just not the case. It's very different if someone approaches you or someone approaches their parents or whoever and says, I'm lost, I have no idea what to do, help me out here. That's a very different story. But to sort of a blanket wash over all young people sort of saying that they're the ones who've been worst hit by the pandemic, they couldn't possibly know what they're going to want out of their future. I'm not saying that's what you're saying, but I know that's what a lot of people think. It's certainly a lot of stuff that I've heard come up over the past year. Whereas if I look at my own life, for example, maybe I've been incredibly lucky, and I do feel very lucky, but I left school proudly. Left school at the age of 15. I know that's actually not legal now. I don't think you have to be 18 to leave school, but I left school at the age of 15, went pretty much straight in at the summer holidays working with computers, which is something that I still do to this day. As far as radio is concerned, I discovered that by accident by myself through no one else, thinking, okay, that's what I want to do. Did a bit of research, looked into it. How do I get into it? Put out the feelers, spoke to a few people, did it, made it happen. And by the age of my early mid-20s, I was working for the company that I'd wanted to work for as long as I could remember, namely the BBC. So it is possible to make things happen. But I'm a great believer that what we're not taught is if you want something, go and get it. Don't expect it to be handed to you. And that's where I think we go so horribly wrong with the next generations, is that it's almost like they're spoon-fed. And I think spoon-feeding is a devastating mistake, because that is not life. We're not spoon-fed. No one's ever spoon-fed in life. It's blooming hard work. And sometimes the only way to discover that is yourself.
Incredibly lucky. You're incredibly lucky, Phil. The way that the ball has bounced in your life is very rare. Very
What?
rare.
Because I went out to go
You
and
are
find work.
you are exception. You are the exception to the rule.
I don't think
Without a
that's.
doubt.
I believe I'm a go-getter. I
do.
think that's very different. I don't think I've been lucky. I think I've worked blooming hard.
Well, everybody works hard. If you want to get anywhere, of course you work hard. That's life. You know, it's not going to be handed to you on a plate. Simon, we ever going to see proper apprenticeships come back?
I don't
Like we
think they've
used
ever
to
gone
have.
away. I think the approach has changed to apprenticeships. They're very much positioned now as a serious alternative to going to university. You know, you have apprenticeships on different levels, from 3 up to 7, I think it is, which rivals all the way up to a master's degree. So, but the approach is just different. It's that work experience plus the learning at the same time. So yeah, I think apprenticeships are still very much a very valid option for young people to look into if they're looking to go into professional career.
Because I just think they could be so useful, although didn't work out in our case so well because the work experience was an absolute joke.
It's very different now. You know, you're not somebody that's making a cup of tea. You are actually getting the life experience actually in the organisation.
It taught. I think it taught one of the kids interpersonal skills, which is invaluable, and what it's like in the real world. But in terms of the career that they might be going into, it was pointless, absolutely pointless. But the university insisted on it, and I just think it was a year down the pan. But there we go. That's just me. If you want to know more about you, Simon,
I was going to say we did a very busy show. So where did we go for more information?
So if you want some more information on the program, you can just go to fastfutures.co.uk, and that will take you to our website, and you can apply for the program. If you're 18 to 24, you can apply for the program. It's a pretty straightforward application process. It's a quick, a short interview and an assessment. And our next cohort starts on the 7th of June, but we've got another one coming up in September as well.
Good news for you, Mr. Simon Hamilton, from Dave Sleet. Amazing work, Simon. Thank you for your efforts to make a difference. Who is going to nominate Simon and his team for APA's Youth Engagement Award?
Please submit that nomination. I would be very welcome to it. But thank you very much.
Well, there you go. That is great.
Is there, Simon? Thank you so much. We really, really do appreciate it. And you'll have to come back and tell us more, and we'll give you hopefully a bit more airtime next time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Take care.
Bye bye.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Goodness me.
Nice chap. Well, the Piccadilly Circus post lockdown, as opposed to bonjour, Françoise Pascal. Hello, darling. Juliet McDermott, hello to you. You know, you and I could have the most furious debate about careers, career paths, and everything else. My advice, this is just my personal opinion, is if your kid has the opportunity to get a proper job and get in on the ground floor and not go to university, grab it. Just grab it. You'll be 3 years ahead of your competitors.
And no debt. And no debt.
The student debt is just disgraceful. And also, Ed made a point way up in the comments there. Some people, not everybody, but some people see 3 years of university as just a 3-year holiday.
Oh, totally.
No, not every case. Please don't write in and start making comments. Oh, my son, he worked hard. They all work hard eventually because they've got to take the exams. Otherwise, it's been a complete load of pants. But they do, and you think, what are you doing? What are you doing? You know, that whole thing about the university experience, for me, very overrated. Very overrated. You know.
Russell, you know what we haven't done so far.
God, we're going to see this shirt. Jesus, this is a shirt. This is an old Compton Street shirt. This is a hell of a shirt. What are these studs
You are
made of?
spending. Spreading very vicious rumours. I'll have you know. Right. Let's have a look.
Well,
Now,
yeah,
there's a bit of a
I know.
surprise waiting in store for
It's
you
all right. I had
today.
Sen Monroe on the phone the other day.
No, there's a bit of a surprise in store for you today when it comes to the old.
Is there? Lizzie
collar.
Cundy is hiding in your kitchen.
No. With the old collar watch, there's a little surprise for you today. The first surprise.
No, I'm
is
sorry I was distracted
that.
before. But what's going on?
And the second surprise is that.
What the hell? Who's coming round? Tottenham Hotspur first team?
Now I've had a first
Why have you made
request,
four? Sorry, why have you made four?
Well, two of them are for us, and then because I couldn't make up my mind if I wanted sesame seeds or poppy seeds, so I sort of made both.
Right.
And then
They
the
look
other
fantastic. Those look really great. Let's see. We've seen your face enough. Let's see the bread. We want to see the bread again. It's really good. Really good. Looks fantastic. To be honest, it looks professional standard. To me, it looks a professional standard.
Oh, thank you.
What have I know? I've got a PhD in hollers.
I was going to say, just bearing in mind,
have you got mosquitoes in your house?
Bear in mind,
Have you
though,
got
that
mosquitoes?
you live in. I don't think so, but bear in mind, you live in an area where there's no collar anywhere. So, I mean, what would you know about professional standard collars?
If your life depend, if your life depended on it, you couldn't find it. You couldn't find that. You couldn't find chopped liver. You couldn't find chopped herring. You couldn't find any of it. Want drugs? You're way in. Now then, drum roll, please, from Julia McDermott. Yeah, they really, really look good. Andrea Lucas, thank you, Beer Potato. Looking very, very good. Andrea, I told Matt I would not be investing in his new restaurant, and I want my money back. I told him today on Twitter. Paul Andrews. Oh, look out! Annika Rice is back. You got a good memory. Oh God, Red Grossman. You can't learn holler baking at uni.
Hang on a sec. So it was Annika Rice, and then who took over after Annika Rice? I can't remember.
Yana. I've no idea. I have no clue. Don't know. I didn't like that show. I didn't watch it. Occasionally, if it was a thing, you know, I just I didn't watch it. This whole thing. Would you find it useful, everybody? Let us know. Let us know. Would you find it useful? It might be your children. It might be your grandchildren. If we got some sort of education, we reached out, we'll find them somehow. Educational people, and just get into this whole debate about sending your kids to uni or just getting a job. No, Andrew, I'm sorry. No. All right. Matt Lucas, right, today on Twitter said, I want to open a place that just serves Yorkshire puddings. And
Lovely.
I said, no, it's a bad idea. I want my 50 grand back. Right. As a joke. And no, a Yorkshire pudding restaurant is not a good idea. It's a little bit narrow, I feel.
Thank you very much.
So Andrew Lucas is coming round just to eat your stuff. Oh, well done, Emma Webb. Annabelle Croft.
Yes,
Annabelle Croft. She was a tennis player, wasn't she?
Yes, that's right.
That's right.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, Paul Claridge. I'm sure the drug dealers in East Croydon will be able to lay their hands on some holler for you.
Now, do you know what I reckon, RK? I reckon that you could have your mind changed about this Yorkshire pudding restaurant, possibly with a bit of hypnosis. If only we knew someone who'd be able to help with that. Thankfully we do. Our next guest is going to talk about.
Oh God, it's already working. Hang on, it's already working. Phil Dave is a marvelous person. We must listen to Phil.
I think that suits you. That might be one for the show reel. It's time now to welcome
uncanny.
Keith Tunstall joins us. Keith, a very good afternoon to you.
Hi guys, how are you today?
Very well, thank you.
I'm not looking in your eyes, Keith. I'm not looking in your eyes.
No, just around them.
All right. Don't look in your eyes.
It's very nice to have you on the show. Thank you very much indeed. We're well, hopefully.
Well, thank you for having me.
First and foremost, let's get in straight away with the notion that most people that I've spoken to say hypnosis, it's a load of bunkum. It doesn't work. Tell them why they're wrong.
Well, a lot of people say to me, can you just put me under? Can you just put me under? And I think they expect just to sort of be almost anaesthetized and then for this magical thing to happen, and then suddenly they're all okay. But it doesn't work like that. Hypnosis is very much a state that we enter into many times a day, when we go to sleep, when we wake up, and it's a trance-like state where we're suspending the conscious critical part of our mind to allow suggestion to take place. And it's taken about 300 years now, since hypnotherapy's been around, for it to really be accepted. And you'll find a lot of doctors now are actually recommending go and get some hypnosis. And it does really have a significant place in the world of therapy. I've been using hypnotherapy since 2000, but since I learned a new therapy called BWRT, brain working recursive therapy, about 6 years ago, that is virtually all I use now, because it's very fast, and it is probably the most successful therapy that I've ever used and ever experienced.
So what's the difference between that and conventional hypnotherapy then?
So hypnotherapy works with the mind, and BWRT works with the brain. So they're like two ends of the spectrum. So hypnotherapy is working after you're consciously aware of the problem, whereas BWRT is working before that stimulus can actually get to your conscious awareness. So it's working way before.
Not sure I follow.
So
I'm getting it.
When we're receiving information all the time from our five senses and from within our own autonomic system, and that information is always checked first by the early part of the brain to ensure that it's safe, unsafe, or don't know, so therefore unsafe until more information is received. And what we're doing, we're stopping stimulus from getting to our conscious awareness. And there's actually something called the cognitive gap. And from the point here where the information is first received into the brain, it takes about a half a second to get and reach our conscious awareness. So hypnotherapy is working here once we receive that information. BWRT is working here before that stimulus can get to our conscious awareness. Is that helping?
No, I understand. I mean, philosophically, intellectually, I understand it. I don't understand. So, how would you change the way that you? All right. So, in the movies and everything, you've got follow my watch, and all that sort of malarkey, which is just nonsense. So, how would you change? What would you do? The patient comes in, sits down, lies down. I don't know, with BWRT. What happens then?
So have you heard of neural pathways in the brain?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So we have a neural pathway for every single thing that we know how to do. So when you walk, you don't think about how you walk. You just walk. It's a learned behavior. And so it's the troublesome neural pathways that are the thing that we target with BWRT. So for example, if someone has a real anxiety of, say, social phobia, and they have a real problem dealing with and going out and meeting with people, and that is clearly a problem for them. It can become very a very difficult problem for them because it can stop them going out. So that's a learned behavior, and at some point their brain would have taken that on, and a neural pathway would have been created for that. So in future,
in other words, it's, if I may sort of put it into the way I've understood this, it's a little bit like, say, breathing at a very trivial level. Obviously, breathing is not trivial, but if we look at something like breathing at a trivial level, not every single time you take a breath in and take a breath out, you don't think about it, you just breathe. Are you talking along those lines?
Yes, because what we're responding to all the time is information coming in from our five senses. And that, what the brain is doing is it's saying, right, is this information safe? And it's looking back to our database of life experience and trying to repeat everything it's ever done, because so far that has led to our survival. So the early part of the brain recognizes that, look, hey, we're still living, we're okay, so everything we've ever done must be okay. And so what it does is it tries to repeat everything that we've done, but the problem is it repeats stuff that's both good and bad. It doesn't think, it doesn't judge, it's a just does mechanism.
What kind of, okay, so can we use some examples of what type of conditions or behaviors or something like that this particular treatment will be used on? Because I think that's what's going to help people understand it better, rather than trying to sort of explain the science behind it. Obviously, I know patient confidentiality and all that, but I mean, in terms of sort of who has come to you with, say, whatever the problem was, and how has the therapy helped them?
Okay, so I specialize in anxiety-based issues. So things like health anxiety, social anxiety, free-floating anxiety, the list goes on. And so someone may very well present with a specific problem. Could be a fear or a phobia. But let's take someone that has real trouble with public speaking. So it might be that they've been asked to do a speech at a wedding, or they have difficulty when it comes to meetings, etc. And so what we would do is we would identify exactly which part of that makes them feel uncomfortable. And when they're able to identify that moment, they can actually feel that problem. And so what we do when we have that situation, we know that particular neural pathway is fired up in their brain. And what BWRT does is it has a very powerful way to stop that neural pathway firing up before it can reach your conscious awareness. And then the client chooses a preferred response to the one that they currently have. And that is what takes its place.
And Keith, I know this is a difficult question, but how long would that, I'm going to call it reprogramming, if you like, or remapping, like the engineers might say, how long would that take, roughly? Is there an average?
So the reason I use BWRT is it's a lot quicker than any other therapy that I've used previously. So some people can get a result in a single session, others can take longer. On average, we're looking at about 4 to 5 sessions to make that change.
And what happens? I mean, what I like to say, just walk me through the mechanics of it. Somebody comes to see you, hello, Mr. Tunstall. Are they sitting down talking to you across a desk? Is it relaxing music? Are the lights low? I mean, what actually is? No, I'm serious, because people, the only person who tried to hypnotize me was Paul McKenna, who I used to work with, and it failed spectacularly. But I was fascinated to see people around me were completely under. Myself and Chris Tarrant was sitting there. We started to laugh, and it had absolutely zero effect on me. And other people were completely susceptible to it. And I thought they were playing along, but they weren't. And I was stunned. I guess that's the way our minds are made up. So somebody comes in to see Keith Tunstall. What happens?
Right. So the difference here is that BWRT is nothing like hypnotherapy. So hypnotherapy is where you are put into a relaxed state. BWRT, we don't want you in a relaxed state. We want you very focused. So it works at a different way completely to hypnotherapy. It's nothing like hypnotherapy.
But then does that mean that there's more resistance to it? I'm not being rude, but because if you imagine with someone who's under hypnosis, or under, I think is the expression you used before. So someone who is put under, it means that if they're sort of so, for want of a better term, out of it, they're probably not in a position to resist what you're telling them. Whereas I would have thought if someone is wide awake, are they able just to ignore what's being said? Maybe not necessarily deliberately, but if, let's say, someone is a bit skeptical, and they don't quite understand sort of how this is going to work for them, is there a stronger chance they might just be able to think, I don't believe that?
Right. Well, because so with hypnotherapy, what we're actually doing is bypassing this questioning part of the mind. And if the client is resistant to that, nothing's going to happen. So resistance can be more of an issue with hypnotherapy than it can be with BWRT, because BWRT, remember, we're working before that conscious part of the mind. So we're getting to the stimulus before it can actually reach the conscious mind. And that's the big difference. Hypnotherapy is working after, BWRT is working before. And that's the main difference. So what BWRT is it's very natural. So people learn behaviors which are not useful to them, like anxiety, as an example. And when
by
that
the way,
happens,
you used the phrase, Keith, you used the phrase, and I'd like to come back to it earlier, free floating anxiety. Is that like just low level anxiety you've got for no particular reason? Is that what you mean by that?
yes, it's just there. And the client,
you don't know why you're anxious.
Exactly. They just come to you and say, look,
okay.
I just feel anxious all the time, and I don't really know why that is. And that's free floating, which is, there are different types of anxiety. Most people.
I've never heard it put in such a way that would suggest that actually you don't need a reason to be anxious. It's really strange. It's never even crossed my mind that.
No, you don't. I'm with Keith on this. You don't. It's sometimes, I think a lot of people, and Keith back me up or telling me I'm talking bollocks, but a lot of people, for some reason, they think I'm anxious. And you go, well, okay, what are you anxious about? I don't know. I just feel anxious. And certainly this last nightmare year has just ramped that up. It's pushed it off the Richter scale of people feeling. I had this, I had this yesterday, Keith. I went to meet my two best friends. My pal Lloyd had booked lunch weeks ago to celebrate the end of lockdown. And it was in Covent Garden. And I'm walking to the restaurant. We're all going to be safe sitting outside. We got absolutely soaking bloody wet. It's like there. And I suddenly had the most appalling anxiety. Now, I'm a London boy, born and bred. Our studio was in Covent Garden. I know it like the back of my hand. I used to be there practically every day. And I suddenly thought, what the hell am I anxious about? I had no idea. And then it went. Just got on with it. But it's a weird thing. I mean, that's just a silly little example. But I do get this free-floating anxiety thing. I had no idea what I was anxious about. Nothing at all, really.
And you can see how we are completely at the mercy of our emotions. You weren't expecting that. It came out of the blue, and it just hit you in a moment. And there's that question. What's going on? Why am I feeling this way? And there may well be.
I put it. Yeah. Sorry. Go on.
There may well have been a trigger for that, but you perhaps might not be aware of it. But it may have just been some sort. But free floating anxiety is normally there all the time.
I think what it was, Keith, in all honesty, and I'm not belittling this or the effect it's had on people. I used the bus, I used the tube, I had to change tube lines. I've done this all my life since I was a kid, right? And it was seeing people after about a year, and the trains were getting back to kind of normal capacity, which I was double masked, not one mask, two masks, wearing gloves, the whole works. And I think it was that.
Yes.
And just, normality trying to come back, and you think, I'm not sure how happy I am about this. And then I get very annoyed that we've been institutionalized, which makes me furious, to be honest with you. But there we go.
Yes, and also just the mask wearing itself, that can cause a lot of anxiety, because when you're in somewhere where you can't just take your mask off and start breathing as you normally would, that can cause a lot of anxiety. So people come out the shop sometimes, you see them ripping their mask off and they're, struggling for breath because it can be quite claustrophobic for them.
I was going to say, I think people have actually discovered that they have an element of claustrophobia during this pandemic without even realizing they had it beforehand, because obviously claustrophobia comes in different forms as to whether or not it's in really enclosed spaces, such as something as close up as your face, or whether or not it's, say, I don't know, maybe a small lift. For example, with me, I absolutely don't know what the mental block is. I can't go in a lift if it's a certain size. I just feel too hemmed in. I can't be doing with it. Yet, peculiarly enough, I'm absolutely fine on the London Underground. I don't get freaked out with that at all. I don't mind being in an airplane. I mean, I don't like it, but I don't mind being in an aircraft for goodness knows how many hours. I've flown sort of over 14 hours before and not thought anything of it. So it is strange how claustrophobia can sort of almost appear on a scale.
Be selective as well. It's claustrophobic, yeah.
And the brain is extremely good at making connections because everything's connected to everything else in the brain. And it can make a connection that you might never, ever conceivably think of. So, like you've just said, Phil, you maybe have a real fear in that particular size of lift, but not in an aircraft. And the brain is making a connection. It's obviously associating that with some life experience that you've had in your past and recognizing that it looks a bit like that. And it will go for a best guess if it needs to. And it will say, okay, that's roughly what we found before. So let's fire up that fight or flight response.
Now, Keith, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you seem like a highly competent man. Could you cure my young colleague, Mr. Phil Dave, of his phobia of wasps?
Well, actually, it's funny you say that, because the chap who, I can't, for the life of me, I can't remember what this chap's name was. How terrible of me. We had someone on, is it Nick somebody? Okay, I think it was. Had someone
I really can't remember. He was jolly good, but I can't remember.
Yeah, it was fantastic. He came on, probably got to be coming up to a couple of years ago. And I explained that I do have a fear of bees and wasps. I know exactly where it came from. Don't need to be analysed on that front. It's very simple. When I was about 6, 7 years old, something like that, I would like to think what most young boys are doing is I was seeing how many stairs I could jump down before being crowned some sort of champion. So I was at the stairs and jumping down about 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, kept going. After I got to about step number 5 and managed to jump all the way down to the bottom of the stairs, I was so proud of myself that I had neglected to realize that there was a wasp that was half alive at the bottom, and I jumped straight onto it, and of course it stung me. And that's where it came from. There's just no doubt about it, because ever since then I never flinched. And ever since then, I've always been very twitchy around them. Anyway, this guest came on how long ago, a couple of years ago, and he started telling me to do some sort of tapping therapy or something like that. I don't know what it was.
EFT.
Right,
EFT, emotional freedom technique.
Distinctly possible. I can't remember the name of it, so you must forgive me. But all I know is that I was today, he just said, right now, I want you to take deep breaths in and out. And he said, just very gently tap the forehead, just doing this. He said, I want you to think of a bee or a wasp. I think he said chasing you or flying around you or something like that. First, I was around sort of 7 or 8, really kind of sort of anxious about the thought of it. I promise you the anxiety dropped to about 2 or 3 thereafter. So I don't know what he did. I don't know how he did what he did, because I was super cynical, super skeptical about it. Just did it. There's no way.
And I was sitting next to him and watched this, and it's all, I thought, blimey, I was surprised. Do you think you'll see, Keith, an upturn in a lot of people needing to come to you as a direct result? And I'm going to have to say it, of lockdown, the fear of the virus, and all the side effects which come from it: economic, emotional, social, marital. Keep going. Do you think that's going to happen?
Well, we're starting. We're all. Well, I'm already starting to see that, and it's quite surprising what actually comes out of the woodwork. There's something called misophonia, which is a specific hatred of certain sounds, normally associated with breathing or chewing or those sorts of mouth orientated noises.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you. I'm so with you on this.
For me, it's sniffing. It's one who sniffs loudly.
Sniffing. Crunching apples. Oh.
So misophonia is absolute rage and disgust. It can be. So it's not just, for goodness sake, that's terrible noise. It is rage to the point where the client feels that they need to punch that person. It is real rage. And I've had
welcome
more
to my world,
clients,
Keith.
I've had more clients this year in the first part of this year than I had in the whole of last year for misophonia.
Wow.
Because people
I would
have
imagine
been kept together and they haven't been able to escape.
They've been forced together with someone. They go, "Cheerio, dear, see you at work." Or
Now, this
1958
is what
sitcom
happened.
there, but
Good Lord, Francois Pascal says, I cannot stand the sound of walking loudly on a wooden floor. It gets me in a very, I think she means bad mood.
Yeah. I know. Clack, 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 clack.
Well,
No,
it's not to be mistaken for just an annoyance. We are talking off the scale rage and disgust.
Why does that happen, Keith? What is that? What is happening to our minds that makes us get so wound up by it? And in particular, what is it about old married couples who can't even stand the sound of one of them stirring a cup of tea? What goes wrong?
Well, anger is a very primeval response to fear. So the anger goes right back in time. And with misophonia, if it's anger, there will be some sort of fear base to that. It's not a great deal known about misophonia and really how it's created. But when you see the client, they can't actually stand to be in the same room as that noise, and they have to go. They cannot stand it.
It's a sort of tongue-in-cheek, but actually there's a sensible side to it. Ed Grossman's question: Keith, can you cure the anti-vaxxers, please?
Well, the thing is that clients have to want to change, and you can't just change
Thank
something.
you.
The only person that can change and make that change is the client. Nobody can do it for them. And the thing is that belief is a strange thing, because if you think about it, if their belief is being challenged, that can be seen as a threat by the early part of their brain to both their integrity and their survival. And so that's why people have such strong beliefs about the way they are and what they believe in, is because if it were challenged, if it was found to be wrong, gosh, how would that be for my integrity and my survival? It threatens their whole existence. Now, whether they're right or whether they're wrong, it doesn't matter. It's what they believe, and what they believe is what they believe.
Top of the list, Keith, seems to be people who talk with their mouth full, eat with their mouth open. Everyone say, "Yeah, hate that." I hate it. Absolutely hate it. Wow.
Yes.
Francois Pascal, bonjour. This gets me off the scale of rage. Trust me, my language is blue, and I hate it when people chew loudly. I do. Absolutely, it drives me nuts.
But
Keith,
can you imagine how debilitating that actually is if you can't eat with your partner or your family?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. I know. Keith, if we want to know more about you, how do we find you on social media? How do we find you with your website? Give yourself a big plug.
Okay, so the website is bwrtuk.co.uk. So bwrtuk.co.uk.
Okay.
And you can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Pinterest, all the social media sites.
Here's nice pictures of someone's brain. That's great. You've been a very good sport. Thank you. I find it's a fascinating area. It absolutely. I've always been fascinated.
Can I just mention that there is a on a more serious note, there is a a charity called Frontline 19. I don't know whether you've heard of them, but they provide free therapy. So therapists give their time to frontline workers free of charge.
Wow.
So this is a fantastic initiative.
Wow.
And I think there must be about 2,000 therapists now. And this was set up by a lady called Claire Goodwin Fee and Ellen Waldron. And they both do a fantastic job. And there are a lot of therapists out there giving their time free of charge. So if there are any frontline workers that feel that they're in need of help, they should go on the frontline19.com site. And if people want to find out,
Frontline 19 and 19 numerals, presumably. 19.
Sorry, 19, yes.
Numeric 19.
Yes,
Yeah.
numeric, yeah.
Okay.
Frontline19.com.
That is very good.
And if people want to
if
know
there's
more
somebody,
about,
Keith, do me a favour, if you would, do us a favour. Could you get somebody from Frontline 19 to contact us? We'd like to have them on the show. I tell you why. It's a fantastic service that they're doing. I've not heard of them. I don't think Phil had. And that would be, it's important work that they're doing, and we'd like to support that and give them a platform to tell people. Because I don't know if you agree with this, people think that people in the NHS and frontline workers, which is a big, broad spectrum, are superhuman. They're not. They're just people. You know, you put on a uniform, you're still a person.
The stress that we've all seen on the television, the NHS workers, I mean, it's just incredible. And the stress they go through on a daily basis is incredible. And, you know, the Frontline 19 are doing an amazing job supporting them.
Absolutely.
Well, if you would be so kind, pass on our details and the email address. That would be great. We will get them on the show because it's something that's very close to our heart, very close to the ethos of Men's Radio Station. Keith, thank you so much for joining us. I know you're a very busy fella. Really appreciate it.
Right. Well, thank you very much. And can I just say that you were very instrumental, Russ, in keeping my stress levels down during the 80s when I used to drive to London every day. And yes, you would be the person that would make me drive in whichever direction I needed to get to my.
What was your route? What was your main route, Keith? Come on.
Well, it was down the A41 through Swiss
I was about to say A40. Oh God!
Now, if in doubt, blame the Finchley Road. Marvelous. Thank you very much
Road for everything. Yes, Keith. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, guys. Great to see you.
All right. Bye. Bye now. Bye.
And did you know that apparently Finchley Road, I'm sure you knew this, Russ, but I'm wondering whether or not if you knew this, that the Finchley Road is the busiest non-motorway road in the whole of Europe. There you go.
Finchley Road sucks. I hate the Finchley Road with a passion. I loathe it. I loathe the Hendon Way, the Finchley Road, and the North Circular. I loathe them with an absolute passion. Ed, I'm reading your comment. I don't know. Can't answer you. I really don't know. Julie Watts, who's a big fan of Keith.
Phil, Russ read my comment, which disappeared soon after I posted it. I think it got censored by your producer just after Russ read it. I doubt it, because I sort of live produced this program and I didn't censor it. So no idea, Ed.
There's only me and Phil, and only Phil because of the software. It's nothing more than that. It's nothing to do with hierarchical or ability. Phil has the software, and only Phil could do that. So there's nobody else who could make the comment drop off. It's impossible.
I mean, I suppose
it's impossible.
It could have been done through Facebook automatically, but certainly wasn't one of us.
It's not. It's actually not us. For once, I live behind the Finchley Road. It's a nightmare. I hate that road. God almighty. Here we go. Julie Watts. Many of our practitioners. Hi, Julie Watts. I think you're a first-time listener, viewer. You're brave. Many of our practitioners are giving their services for Frontline 19 and our pro bono scheme. No mention of share.
Well,
if you get it, you get it. It's wonderful. The Frontline 19 sounds to me a bit like Wingman, not the dating service with those two rather saucy ladies. The wingman that goes to hospitals and places and just talks to the staff literally over tea and biscuits. You can get much more British if you tried, but they're doing a fantastic job. This is going to be needed. Frontline 19, bless you. Wingman 19, wingman, bless you as well. This is going to be part and parcel of what we're going to need to get back up on our feet. And I don't know if you saw yesterday the news that because of the pandemic, and this is everything that we've been talking about, and Phil was the first to bring this up back in about last April 20. The country is 4.2 million operations and procedures behind.
Yes,
4.2
unbelievable
million. And
now, just my
let me just tell
imagination.
you something. What?
How on earth are we going to catch up with that?
Well, no, I've got another thing which I want to bring into the mix of this. Is I had to go to see the doctor. I finally got an appointment to see the doctor face to face. There was some issues, and of course they want you in and out. I get that. They're very busy people. I get that. Okay, you're preaching to the converted. So I had my list. I make a list so I don't forget anything. And he said to me, well, we can't go. And it was a very nice guy. I'm not complaining about the guy for 1 second. I'm not complaining anyway about the service of the NHS particular practice, just to be clear. But he said, well, I haven't got time to go through that. There was a list of 3. You have to pick your top 2. And I thought, hang on a minute. You know, it's not. I'm not doing a pick and mix from a menu for lunch. I've got 3 things which are of concern to me, which are affecting my daily life, and I had to pick them because there wasn't time. I understand they're busy, but I can't see how that works. You know what I mean? I'm not moaning about them. They're under terrible time constraints, which is just a spin-off from what's happening.
So people denigrate the notion of speaking to people online, but actually it's because, unfortunately, that they're so flipping overstretched that's sort of the reason why they have to do online, is because it's the only way. And even then, time is so overstretched. It's a very sorry state of affairs. But does.
Phil, how are they going to catch up? 4.2. Seriously, 4.2 million procedures. That's impossible.
Oh, I don't think they will. I have zero doubt in my mind. And sorry, forgive me for saying this. People would die waiting. There's no doubt in my mind. You've got to be realistic. How is it possible? You know, there are only so many doctors and nurses in this country. There are only so many time slots for operations and procedures. How on earth is it possible with everything that comes up day after day after day? How on earth do we catch up with we as if we're in the medics, but 4.2 million? Impossible.
You're not. It's absolutely. It's. What does that set you back? Years? Decades? 5 years? I don't know. Sue Cressman, thank you for that. No, they're completely unrelated. That was why I had to pick. Not half pop pickers. Your top 3 ailments. In at number 3, there we go. Julie Watts, thanks, Julie. You've been very vociferous, and we appreciate it. We offer a free scheme for frontline emergency services, etc. www.bwrt.org. Bravo, well done, and thanks to everybody there. Good morning to the New York in the United States of my auntie Teresa used to call it America. You going back to that America, Russell? Good morning, nice to hear you. Try anything medical here. Well, that's the problem with America. Fantastic country, fabulous country, and your medical profession and your medical care is just absolutely awful.
Well, no, awful. I beg to differ. I don't think it's awful. I think it's not awful as long as you've got money.
Phil, getting access to it. I'm not talking about the skill. Obviously, they're highly skilled. They've got the most advanced gizmos in the world, but getting access to healthcare in America is an absolute freaking nightmare. Awful. The cost of it is insane. You know, it's nearly the 1 year anniversary, and I will. My best friend Francis Maguy, who died out in LA nearly a year ago, which is frightening. I miss him every day, but that's not the point. So he had to go for tests, and he had a scan, and he was in and out in 20 minutes. And I said, well, and I'm thrilled. I go for my scans in the NHS hospital. He said, yeah, they charged me 20 grand. $20,000. That's what you're dealing with in America. If you haven't got health insurance, you are screwed, and screwed royally. Steve Harris out in Hamburg. From New York to Hamburg. We have good medical care here. That's in Germany, as long as the EU are not involved. Well, yes.
How long have you
discussing this? How long you got? How long you got? Careful, Phil. Somebody will storm out of a dinner party. Careful.
Yeah, oh, quite. Well, hang on a sec. Oh, here we go. Right. Ed Grossman says, Phil, listen, I knew the compliment about the shirt was short-lived. The problem is mainly that doctors do both NHS and private and always make sure private gets done first. Blame the idiot who dreamt up the scheme in 1946.
And Iron Bevan. Well, you can't call him an idiot.
I don't blame him at all. On the contrary, I think if it weren't for him, many, many thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people would have died unnecessarily. So I don't blame. I blame
wonderful. Him. I think what he did was, look, I think that's an unfair comment. What he did was, this country had been absolutely shattered by World War II. People had made the most horrific sacrifices. Millions of people died, and Iron Bevan said, we need to give something back. And that was the creation of the National Health Service. Now, as I've mentioned, I think several times on this show, I was called in as a consultant for the Department of Health. I stayed there for a year as writing their communications. And I did a lot of research and went back through the archive. It was absolutely fascinating. So it was kicked off in the late 40s. But I can tell you this, that by 1951, they realized they couldn't afford it. It was a wonderful idea. It remains a magnificent idea. But in the space of about 3 years since its commencement, they realized it was impossible to fund the NHS. They completely miscalculated, totally miscalculated.
What really irritates me, there are so many elements of the NHS that could be improved in terms of the way it's funded and how we do fund it. The way I look at it is that if someone, and this is not going to go down very well, but sorry, you might not like it, but arguably self-inflicted. We know a lot of facts in this day and age. Obesity causes diabetes, or certainly gives you a high risk. A high risk of diabetes, type 2 diabetes. We also know that smoking is a very likely cause of lung cancer. We know that there are many, many different factors to everyday living that can cause the most shocking health conditions. And there is no incentive for anyone to look after themselves, because we know that for as long as we live the lifestyle we want to lead and say to hell with the consequences, the NHS will pick up the bill and will look after us. That's where we go wrong. If we were to say that a condition that is entirely self-inflicted, and I have no doubt in my mind that doctors are clever enough to prove it's self-inflicted, as long as they are not treated on the NHS, could you just imagine the amount of money that would save? I know people are going to say, oh, you can't do that, the Hippocratic Oath and all of that. No, it's
we can't shove them out in the street and let them die. That's not possible. But I do agree. I hate to say this. I totally agree with you.
But I think it's on an incentive. If you say, if you're going to use yourself to that degree and you're going to risk your health to that degree, the country is not going to pick up the bill for it. That's not right. Seriously. Because all that's doing is giving
I'm agreeing with you. I'm agreeing that people, look, this all goes back to it's no one's fault culture. This goes completely back to the nothing is anyone's fault, it's always somebody else to blame. You know, if you eat burgers and chips all day and waddle around and do sod all exercise and look like the size of a house with Billy Smart on the side of written on the side of your clothes, that's all you can fit in, well, it's kind of your fault. As
now,
T. Green once said to me, yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I was hoping that someone like...
No. Yeah, Sue, sorry.
To chime in with this. Sue, your cancer diagnosed, correct me if I'm wrong, was not due to an unhealthy lifestyle, right? You didn't knowingly do anything, as far as I'm aware from the discussions that we've had over Messenger on this and spoken to you in person. From my understanding, you never knowingly did anything that put you in harm's way in order to contract a type of cancer. That's very different. But when someone knowingly, and the fact that they even ask questions, do you smoke? Do you drink? If so, how many units? Blah, blah, blah. The point that they even ask that, they're trying to work out the statistics of how much is self-inflicted. And yet nothing's done about it. And don't even get me started
well, you see, hang on. Whoa.
On so-called health tourists.
About the what?
On so-called healthcare tourists. So in other words, people who use the NHS because they
please
believe.
don't even go there. Don't even go there. They should never be allowed. They should be told to sod off or pay up. As simple as that. Same as you do if you go to America. Now, it is this whole thing. It's always somebody. But you know what drives me mad is that on the one hand, you can't advertise cigarettes. Fair enough. Alcohol advertising is restricted. Fair enough. All right. So we have had for endless years rammed down our throats as though we're all morons. Oh, you got to exercise. You got to eat better. You got to do this, that, and the other. Right. Obesity is the killer. Blah, 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 blah. Right. There's no restrictions within reason on fast food joints. Now, that's people's personal choice. If you want to go to McDonald's, you want to go to Pizza Hut, if you want to go to any of these places and eat fried chicken or whatever you want to do, yeah, it is. But if you want people to stop being obese, like you wanted people to stop smoking, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but you've got to look at cause and effect. What is advertised all the time? Fast food. Endlessly. Fast food. What was the first thing that was opened? The first thing that was opened, and the queues in the cars were enormous. The drive-through for fast food. I don't get it, but that's just me.
I mean, there's the other. You could go even deeper with this, RK, as well. You could say the number of adverts there are on all different types of gambling. We've just about got a grip on every single other.
This is just. I find that extraordinary.
Vice. We've just about cut
every ad break. Yeah, every ad break.
Programs that are sponsored by online bingo sites. You tell me how that's any better than a program being sponsored by a cigarette brand. It's not. It's a highly addictive.
It's Julie Watts. Thank you for being part of the MRS family, Julie. By the way, I just want to say one quick thing. It's a tech thing. In case you think that Phil and I are slightly hard of hearing, there is the slightest of delays between Phil and I. It's the technical thing. There's absolutely nothing we can do about it. It's almost imperceptible, but sometimes when we cross over, it's because we're not aware the other one has actually started speaking when we start speaking. It's a technical thing, and I apologize for that. Chrissy Richards, I much prefer fresh cooked food. Don't like fast food except fish and chips. Yay, love fish and chips. Who doesn't?
All these years I've sung this pain. Viva España.
Just because we haven't done that.
Yeah, Glacia Mandan, also I needed to move. I get it. Fast food is cheap and convenient. We need more education to how to prepare food cheaply and nutritionally from school upwards. Well, they got rid of, what was it called, gang? It was called home economics, wasn't it?
Oh, yes.
Home economics went. Home economics is just bloody important. Teach people that it's not rocket science. You don't need to be Gordon Ramsay or Marco Pierre White to create simple food. Phil, 100%. Pop that back again. Look at the Spurs manager pushing betting on TV. It's a disgrace, he says.
Look, the point is that if we know these different vices are wrong and they are bad for us, okay, I'm not saying everything in moderation. There was one comment before, actually. Let's see if I can find it. Where I know, because it was a really valid point as well. After off the back of I'd made it. Was it Michael who said it? I'm really sorry. I can't remember who said it, but someone said something along the lines of, "Where do you draw the line? What about?"
It was Michael Verby.
It was Michael. I thought so. Where do you draw the line? Do you treat people on Friday night in A&E? Would you know what I'd do? Look at their record. I would say, look how many times they wind up in A&E due to alcohol-induced behaviour, because we've all got medical records. We've all got NHS numbers. The point is that to every single person who crosses the line of A&E, they do not think, and I'm sorry, you're probably going to say, of course they don't think of it. They're not feeling well. They're in a vulnerable position. I get that. But every single time they walk through the door, that's costing the NHS money. And we're not strict enough about what we spend that money on. And there's also a whole load, I get it, of middle management that's probably not needed as well. The entire thing needs shaking up. I get that. But
of course it does.
At the same time, we need to be a more responsible nation. Our NHS is absolutely bursting at the seams. It was before COVID came along, never mind now. And the fact that we've got 4.2 million procedures waiting to be done, if that doesn't scream out to you that something's got to give, then hello, wake up.
This is such a huge hornet's nest we've just kicked here. From New York, Elizabeth Green, yes, it's all around you. I have an addictive personality. I have to manage myself. You see, the thing, Paul Andrews making the point I was going to make. So the same idiot turns up every Friday at an A&E, pissed off his face, right, covered in blood. Do you just say, no, Mr. Jones, we're not treating you? What happens? What happens?
Well,
what happens if he dies?
Well, what happened before the
families? What happened in the early 1940s? Well, we were fighting the Germans and the Japanese. I think that's basically what happened.
No, there was. I mean, I'm sure people would turn around and say, well, there was the British Red Cross. Fine, but the British Red Cross, it was a very different setup then. My point is that people very simply just abuse themselves because they think it's fine. The NHS will pick up the bill no matter what. They've got a safety net there against everything. And that is wrong. And I get the reason why we take the bejesus out of cigarettes and alcohol is because it helps to fund NHS for dealing with those problems. I get it. But actually, here's an incentive. What about not taxing the bejesus out of those vices, letting people make their own minds up, but giving them one hell of an incentive not to go down the overload route in the first place?
All right. Explain. So a pack of cigarettes now is, well, I don't smoke cigarettes, all right? I smoke cigars, I don't touch cigarettes, and I'm just not chain smoking cigars, right? And it's a different process, and I will argue that till the cows come home. However, a pack of cigarettes is, I don't know, 12 quid?
Something like that.
I don't know, it's 12 quid. In Soho, with a friend of mine, and they wanted a £5 surcharge. Walked out. £5 surcharge, bloody cheap. So a pack of cigarettes would have been 15 quid. Right, take the tax off, and they're now tuppence halfpenny, whatever they are. I don't know what they are. What are you suggesting? So you can go into your local coffee and buy a pack of whatever they are.
Now, hang on a second. I'm sorry. This is getting silly now. I'm sure I'm making my point a little clearer than this. Michael says, I agree with you, Phil. But as I said before, someone has a car accident. That's clearly not. That's clearly their fault. Do you not treat them? Well, the difference is if you actually choose to behave like a lunatic, that's up to you. But the way I look at it is that with a car accident, that's very hard to prove if it's someone's fault or not. You say if it's clearly their fault. I don't know whether or not it's that obvious one way or another with a car accident or a car incident. But if you've got someone who chooses to chain smoke and they wind up getting lung cancer, why? Why should the NHS fund that? That does not make
them suffer. You're on dangerous ground with me here. What are you going to do? You're going to let them suffer?
I'm not on dangerous ground at all. They choose to smoke. They know the risk attached to it. Why should the NHS pick up the bill?
Well, who's going to pick up the bill?
That's their problem. Why should the NHS pick up the bill? Sorry, I'm being deadly serious here. This is not okay. It puts the doctors and nurses under the most immeasurable pressure for the amount of stuff they've got. 4.2 million operations waiting to be done. Right? I mean, that is unfathomable. And I'm sorry, but
it would be very. I would agree with maybe a sliding scale, but you cannot turn people away.
Why?
It's because it's inhuman. It's inhuman. Phil.
It's their choice. It's actually their choice to make a lifestyle decision that could put them in harm's way. They've chosen to do that, not the NHS, not the country, not the hardworking taxpayer who's having God knows how much money taken away from them to fund projects like the NHS. Let me be very clear. National Health Service is amazing and absolutely needs to survive, but I don't see it surviving if we carry on the rate we're carrying on.
Well, it's enshrined in the country's DNA. It will have to survive because no government could close it down. Now, Phil, Ed is saying, Phil, you can't prove that someone actually got cancer from smoking. Look at Sue Cressman. She's had cancer twice. She doesn't smoke. She's never smoked.
So that you can prove she hasn't got it. Then you can prove she hasn't had it from she hasn't smoked.
Hang on, whoa, how?
If she hasn't smoked, then obviously it's not from smoking. Then is it? That stands to reason.
But
if she's not smoked,
let's take the fact that it's Sue Cressman. Let's just take a person gets cancer. They haven't smoked. The doctor says, well, we can't treat you because we think you've smoked. And that person says, well, I've never smoked. Where do you leave this? This leads into this is
Elizabeth. Phil, you're always cropping solutions. Well, I'm trying to say the solutions, but for some reason they seem to be thrown away. But how do you deal with
No, Phil, I'm not. I live in the real world. You live in the real world. I don't do BBC theoretics. It's all bollocks. I'm talking about the real world when people actually get ill. You have to set up certain things here. Should they not treat you for holler addiction? Says Michael Furby. Thank you. Now, Andrea Lucas, Des O'Connor, and also the same with Roy Castle, may I say, died from lung cancer. It's because he worked in the clubs. When these guys were working their way up the rank, both the brilliant Des O'Connor, I was so pleased to have met him and spent some time with him.
And may I just say, one of the nicest people.
Just a lovely man, and also the great Roy Castle. They grew up. They were working in the clubs, and of course, everyone was drinking and smoking like crazy. And they got the cancer affected them. They reckoned through the clubs. There's always a reason. Mickey Most because of the asbestos built into the recording studio walls, which no one knew anything. Now, Elizabeth Green's making an interesting point, and let's not make a sarcastic comment for a second. Some of us need to drown out the world. Well, that is why people, it's people. There is a difference between what, I fancy a drink. 6 o'clock, I normally have a drink. Maybe 7 o'clock, depends how busy I am. I normally have a drink, right? It's not because I want to block. It's because I enjoy it. I'm not trying to block anything out. I enjoy it. But there are people who drink specifically to forget, to avoid what's going on. I get that. Well, that's why they take drugs. I get it.
See, the problem is, I think that we are afraid as a race. This is, I think, global wide. I think this is. We are afraid of vulnerability. Okay, we are totally and utterly incapable, by and large, of being brave enough to tackle whatever life throws at us. Make no mistake, life is hell half the time. For some people, it's an okay. I know you know that more than most, I'm afraid. It can be absolutely hideous. But if you offer people a safety net that says, no matter what you do to abuse yourself, we've got you. All that is doing is saying it's okay to abuse yourself. That's all that does. That's not an incentive not to do that. And that's my point.
It's something we're not going to resolve. I mean, you and I will never resolve over this. Now, here, Chrissy Richards from Spain. My friend never smoked. 60 years old when she retired. She got breast cancer. Tell me why. I don't know. I don't
No,
know
I
who the
But
hell
who
knows.
in their right?
Eventually, maybe 20. In all seriousness, I reckon 20 to 30 years time, they will have a much better idea of what causes it. And remember, cancer is a word that covers a huge variety of things. It's not there isn't one thing called cancer.
I'm very worried that people are not understanding my point here, because let me make it very clear. If someone has never touched a cigarette in their life and ends up getting a type of cancer that is not really known for being associated with smoking, then you're damn right I'm not saying for a second that those individuals shouldn't be treated.
Paul Claridge, who we know,
of course they shouldn't be treated.
Very ill. He's never smoked.
Right. So, of course,
so Steve Harris in Hamburg is saying spot on, Phil. What are we suggesting here, Steve? What are you suggesting? That people who, eat McDonald's 25
who do
times
not
a day,
look after themselves, people who do things that have been knowingly told that certain habits will put your health at risk. That is their choice, but the NHS is not there for them to fall back on. That's up to them.
What do they do when they get... So just explain to me what they do when they get ill.
That is up to them. That is totally and utterly...
So you don't have an answer. So you don't have an answer, in other words.
All right. Maybe I don't have an answer.
Piss off and die. Well, you do. You're just telling them piss off and die.
Would you like me to say, if they're putting their health at risk, knowingly putting their health at risk, that's up to them. But they've got to deal with the consequence of that. Stop expecting someone else to pick up the bill. That's just not right. It's as simple as. That's what I'm saying. Very clearly.
Some people, Andrew Lucas is saying this, but some people have mental health problems, which leads to overeating. Sometimes. Prader-Will syndrome. I thought it said Prader-Will syndrome. I thought that's posh. Prader-Will syndrome. How do you differentiate between these people?
You know what? I think this is just... For goodness sake.
No,
right, hang on a second.
No.
Then if you get a bad back, you shouldn't be treated because you've bought a new chair. For God's sake, if I'm talking about things that are known health risks here, okay? You buy a wrong chair, that could be an innocent mistake. You buy a chair because you want to buy a chair and you need a new chair. It's not because you're going out of your way to putting your health at risk. I'm not so sure what on earth what I'm saying is not making sense here.
I think Michael Verb is... No, we're hearing... Philip, we're hearing you. Everybody's hearing you, but there's no kind of middle ground. Michael Verb is summing it up quite nicely. I also get wound up by people who obviously cause their own problems. Yeah, I know. But you can't play God. You can't pick and choose. I don't think you can pick and choose. You can bring in, before you start yelling, Phil, just hear me out, all right? What you can do, just hear me out. You could say, what?
Just feel very strongly about it. I'm not yelling.
No, I understand that. And it's good to be passionate. Otherwise, people think we're just two buffoons. Of course it's good to be passionate. And I don't recall that,
I get upset for the NHS. I know people who work in it. I know how hard they work, and I know how many schmucks they have to deal with, and it upsets me.
Well, they deal with a lot of it. Yes, they deal with fantastic people who are just trying to lead a normal life, and like with every aspect of life, they're dealing with absolute moronic idiots who blame everybody else but themselves, smoking 40 fags a day and only eating fast food, not getting off their ass and watching television 15 hours a day. You're going to have a health problem. All right, you're going to have a problem. That's all there is to it. So I don't know whether you introduce a sliding scale. I have no idea. Thank God it's not my decision, because I wouldn't know what to say.
Here's a thought for you.
Right.
People say about sort of the whole, they say about taxing drinks and cigarettes and stuff like that. And of course, as a result of it, it sort of means that some people go without food and stuff like that, and God knows what else. I'd say that's up to them. If they want to smoke, they want to spend heaven only knows how much on a packet of cigarettes, is fine. And it's no skin off my nose. I don't smoke. I've never bought cigarettes in my life. So I don't pay that tax. But here's the thing that I'm thinking. Health insurance for those who choose to live that particular lifestyle. So in other words, stop putting the onus on people who behave responsibly, for argument's sake, those who go to the pub and know how to have one or two drinks here and there. Let them be the ones to actually pick up the bill with a specific insurance that they have to buy. Then that way it doesn't put the general tax on everyone.
I think, and I'm going to say this, and maybe it'll resonate with people listening and watching all over the world. New York, Germany, Spain, France, is this. I think the older you get, the more you think, sod it. I honestly do. Now, before you jump in, you know, you've had more time and more crap has happened to you. You're tireder. You want to chill out a bit more. And I think that the older you get, the more you think, well, if I want to drink, I'm going to drink. You know, and if I want to smoke, I'm going to smoke. Because we are so regulated by so much stuff now. You know, the thought police, the legislation they're trying to bring in is just ludicrous. I mean, even George Orwell would have said that would be too much for my book. You know, in Scotland, they're trying to say if somebody says something upsetting in your home, you can report them anonymously. Oh, sod off. That's life. People are always saying upsetting things. People say things, we get on. You fall in love, you fall out of love. You know, it's the great yin and yang of life. It goes it goes in waves. That's what happens. That's how grown-ups deal with it. You're meant to be responsible, but I mean, as a slight aside, but not completely veering off tangent. Yesterday on the tube, I always listen to audiobooks. I listen to my Audible books all the time when I'm walking the dog and when I'm traveling and in the car. And so I get through a lot of books. I find it very relaxing and very interesting and enjoyable. Enjoyable. Anyone remember that word? But on the tube yesterday, the announcements never effing stopped. And they're deaf the whole time you're on the escalators, blaring out at you. You know, like we're some drones, like we're extras in Fritz Lang's Metropolis. It drove me crazy. We are being treated like absolute cattle half the time. And I hate that.
Oh, yes. Oh, no, I couldn't agree more.
That. You don't need it. This whole nanny state, because that is just an extrapolation of the nanny state. We're not all stupid people. We know how to go down a bloody escalator. We've been doing it for 50 years. We're aware of it. You know, if it's raining, it might be slippery. Duh, it's wet.
You know,
it might be bloody slippery.
Yeah, but you know, a lot of that is to cover their backs. It's less so because they're treating people like.
We should never have got to this bullshit
I agree.
stage. This is nonsense.
I agree completely. But
this is absolute nonsense. Caution, you know, the apple pie McDonald's might be hot. Of course it might be bloody hot. It's meant to be hot. I mean, this is just rubbish.
Well, my personal favourite the other day, and I am not joking, I bought a packet of pecans from a certain supermarket. Genuinely, no joke, on the back, it says may contain nuts. No kidding.
No, really? You think? No shit.
Nuts. It's absolutely bizarre. But this is
Michael Verby is coming. Michael Verby is coming to try and give you some succor here. Excellent photo, Michael. Excellent. You don't seem to grasp, Phil, that most people on this platform agree with your sentiment, but the idea is unworkable because of too many variables. This,
okay, but be that as it may, but solutions. No, I know, but solutions are the answer, right? It's not so much a case of saying, "Oh, it will never work," and move on. Do you see what I mean? That doesn't help the argument either. It doesn't help the problem. You can't just say it's not going to work, because what will happen is the NHS will implode. It's the only way it can go. Right? How much more funding can the NHS have thrown at it than it already has? You know, and the answer is billions more. But where does that billions come from? It comes from you, and it comes from me. And it's a big problem.
Phil, one of the things, and I have personal experience of this because this is what I did for 12 solid months, 5 days a week, was looking at all the ways to save millions of pounds per annum. Millions. Because The wastage is, and I'm talking about it from the inside, and I didn't sign the Official Secrets Act when I went to work there. Interestingly enough, they should have made me do it, but they didn't. They didn't. So
Certainly
what makes me laugh about that? What makes me laugh about that is this was under Tony Blair's government. Okay. So I had access to everything. I was writing briefing documents that went through to no shit, serious for a minute. I was writing briefing documents and notes and presentations that were going straight to number 10, actually being done in number 10. Parliamentary committees, etc. That's what I was doing. Had my very serious hat on for that year. But I saw, because I had to write a review and stuff, the privatization plans that Labour government had in place. That I'm not going to go into them. They were jaw-dropping. They were extraordinary. So when I see this, they wheel out whoever it is when it gets to a political. This isn't a political comment. This is a comment about life. I'm not doing politics on men's radio. There's enough of it everywhere else. So when I see, oh, this is the fault of somebody, I've seen those plans. I still have them tucked away very safely. So, there's so much hypocrisy here. What you're looking at is this huge megalith monster of an organization that needs trimming, and millions and millions and millions could be saved that can go to frontline care. That's what it's about.
There are so many ways. So many ways. And I'm a great believer as well, and people get absolutely apoplectic about this, is that, I'm sorry, I believe that if you have not paid international insurance for at least 5 years, you don't get the NHS for free. That would be one hell of a start.
Say that again slowly, because I think that's the Germans that actually very good idea.
If you don't contribute to national insurance for at least 5 years, you do not get the NHS for free. It's as simple as. That to me is a strikingly obvious solution, because it will stop encouraging people to just start making the most of it the second they pay NI. And even then some. Don't even think people pay NI all the time and they can still use it. There just needs to be. I totally understand. Can I just say, if I may, so I totally understand when people say that doctors and nurses have signed Hippocratic oaths that can't go picking and choosing. You're right, they can't. Security guards and receptionists have not, to the best of my knowledge, signed Hippocratic oaths. There's a thought.
Oh, that is a fine line. That's a very clever legal argument, but that is a fine line you're putting out there. Because the argument will then go, wearing my lawyer's hat, the argument is, who's employing, I think we go down this route, who's employing the security guard? All right, so your notion is, if I'm reading between the lines, you put security guards outside A&E, some guy pissed on his face, completely trolleyed, and the security guard says, sod off, right? So they're the gatekeeper, no plug intended. But who employs them? Well, the hospital does, or the hospital trust employs them, or
the trust don't sign the Hippocratic Oath either. It's the doctors and nurses who do.
I think we're on dangerous. I think there's dangerous legal ground.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying legally we're on very thin ice.
Okay, can we at least agree on one thing here? Okay, because I'm very aware that apart from anything, Chantal will hopefully be along shortly to rescue this program.
No, it's not rescue. People are thinking, your mum is thinking. You see, this is the thing. This is the thing about real life versus social media bullshit life. Social media bullshit life is there's only one view, and that is my view. And if you don't agree with my view, you're a moron, you're a little Englander, you're a Nazi, you're a communist, you're a Marxist, you hate gays, you hate no, I just don't agree with you on that. You might not be any of those things, but there's no middle ground. Proper grown-up, normal, real life where we all around the world try and inhabit, you can have this debate. I mean that I hate Phil or Phil hates me. How could he with this marvelous t-shirt? But that's the point. It's not like we're arguing at each other because we're arguing points about life. We're not arguing at each other. We're not taking it personally. You can't go through life taking every bloody thing personally. This is why we get. I know you hate me.
He
Don't
says
worry.
that, but you know.
Right? No, but it's true though, isn't it? It's what grown-ups do, as the lyrics that when Ray Gelato does the early song. You know, we talk like grown-ups do. That's why Ray and I wrote that bit.
I enjoy a hearty debate, and I make no apologies for it. And you know why the reaction is because people are not used to it. People are actually become so conditioned to not hear healthy debate that we have no ability anymore to recognize when someone's arguing or when someone is actually just trying to sort of get a point across one way or another. And I have no issue whatsoever being told I'm wrong. I don't have to agree with you.
Paul Andrews, this is not good. And Paul, on behalf of everybody at WRS, Women's Radio and Men's Radio, I'm quite glad your new policy isn't in place yet, Phil. I've just been diagnosed. I'm assuming the worst, Paul, with cancer. You don't say, and most likely caused by previous lifestyle. I am so sorry. I really am so sorry. It's horribly prevalent. And one of the things, and I don't know who it was, I think it was Chrissy Holt in Spain, said this, and it's something that we should bear in mind, because one of the great causes of so many illnesses is stress. And that's not 21st century tree hugging, Birkenstock wearing bullshit. It's true. Stress causes an enormous amount of illnesses. And this last year has pushed people's stress levels beyond which they ever thought they could endure. That's a fact. So I think it's going to be an interesting time ahead. Paul Claridge, hang on, here we go. Phil. Now, Paul Claridge, bear in mind, has beaten cancer. He's very brave, he's very positive, and he has a difficult life. And through it all, he remains the most humorous person you could wish to meet. Phil, you're a security guard in A&E. A person approaches slurring his words, stumbling and acting aggressive. Is he drunk, or does he have a serious life-threatening head injury? Absolutely. See, this is it. You can't, Phil, where the argument falls down, and then we're going to move on. You cannot give a security guard with no medical training have him as the decider, the gatekeeper of whether someone's admitted or not admitted. They've got no training. They can stop you going into a nightclub wearing trainers. That's it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I would put it to you like this. Okay. It's amazing. I absolutely guarantee to you that if it was a policy that other people thought of, okay, and I'm not talking about this particular sort of thought process. Let's just say there's another policy off the top of your head that you've thought of that other people disagree with. If someone starts coming to you at micro level and starts talking about individual cases, you know, it's pie in the sky. It's hypothetical and it's ridiculous. It doesn't actually help the argument. The argument here is that the NHS is overstretched. No one would argue that. The NHS has got to do something, or something's got to give, because otherwise it will implode. I would like to think no one's going to argue with that. And I'd also like to think that it is thoroughly unfair that for people's stupidity, others pay for it. And again, as long as all of that is taken into consideration, I don't mind what the answer is. I don't mind at all, you know, whether or not you say to me that whatever policy I have in mind would never work.
You think
fine.
The thing is, here is the word stupidity is a very pejorative term. Just saying. I'll give you another example. Then we're moving on. I mean, for example, these are not just moral issues. These are legally incredibly entangled issues. The reason why we don't have automated cars, self-driving cars everywhere. Now, be clear, the technology is there. The technology works brilliantly. What is holding it back is one thing, and one thing only: insurance. Because the great legal minds around the world, especially in America, cannot agree on culpability. They cannot agree on who would be responsible in the event of an accident. So what I'm saying, and I'm not changing the subject and moving on to automated driving, which will happen. It's, as I said, it's here. The technology is there. They could do it literally from Monday morning, but they can't agree on the insurance. And because some things are just not straightforward in life. They're just not. You get into this tangle of legal requirements mixed with moral requirements, and there is no definitive answer. So you're going to hack somebody off, whatever happens.
Well, I mean, the way I look at it is people seem to be of the persuasion that as long as it's not the person who's the hardworking taxpayer who has to fund all of this stuff is not as the one that's hacked off, then that's fine. I'm just saying it's not. Okay,
So
I don't
Paul
believe
Andrews is saying, are you calling alcoholics stupid?
I don't believe those words came out of my mouth personally. I'm quietly confident I never said that. But
no,
hey,
he didn't. No. All right. Well, you can play it back. Obviously, you didn't say alcoholics are stupid any more than you can say drug addicts are stupid. It's an illness. Having an illness of any kind, it doesn't make you a stupid person. It makes you an ill person. That's as much as you can possibly say. The NHS is abused by people who go there with a finger ache or a headache. Some of the problem, I think people should contribute money if they... well, we've fallen at the first fence, Chrissy. If they can, for abusing the NHS. Well, no, then the argument goes, oh, hang on a minute. You've got no money to make a contribution, and yet you can go out and spend £12 on a packet of whatever the cigarettes are. I'm not going to plug them. So, that's... And then you get into the other moral argument of, hang on, people have earned the money or got the money. They can spend it any damn way they choose. It's their choice. It's their choice. It's the same as saying, well, Russell, you like cigars. Yes, I do. And you spend that on cigars? Yes, I do. Why? Because it's my damn choice.
It's your damn choice, but it's your actions that could potentially cost a lot of money to someone else. And this is where I get annoyed. That's what really winds me up. It's almost as if people think the UK is a bottomless pit, and it isn't. Everything, you
get into that. How do we get into this? Well, not a bottomless. How did we get into this? I'm blaming Ed Grossman.
Well,
this is going to be my next T-shirt. My next T-shirt is I blame Ed Grossman for everything.
You opened a can of worms
get Lloyd
today
to make it up.
Oh, do you know what I think we need?
I think we need a drink and a fag. Drinking a fag and a pizza. That's what we need. That's what we need. Pizza.
Absolutely. Oh dear, oh dear.
I just want to say something. Phil probably comes across as somewhere between Attila the Hun and Pol Pot sometimes. He's not like, in real life, he's not like that in the least. He is a very convivial person.
Oh, I
do always take my secateurs with me, just in case he comes at me.
Do you know what I suppose you lot would have rather I said? Is you would have rather I said, oh, you know what? You're absolutely right. And then what would we have spoken about for half an hour? Do you know what? Chantal, help! Hello, Chantal.
Oh, she's gone. She's hiding behind the sofas. Look, she's hiding. Ah, that's because Chantal...
Now, Chantal's in... Oh,
so yeah,
hello,
you
Chantal.
can't turn off your phone and your...
Oh, there we go. Okay, right. I tell you what, we'll leave Chantal to sort out.
You have upset. This is what's happened.
This might go on a bit.
Your demonic views of Satan worshipping. You have upset her, and now she's gone. And now we don't know what's any good on TV. Like everybody else, by the way. We're waiting for Chantal. He's not that left wing. Paul. We wish you well. Stop arsing around on that. We wish you well. We hope you have a very, very good outcome. One of the things that's upset me so much, and I'm getting onto TV, predictive text. This isn't a joke, so please don't come in with a gag. So many people are losing people that if I put in on my phone, MY, immediately comes up deepest, then comes condolences, then to you and your family. I don't even type it anymore. It's predictive text that knows how many times I have written that to people that I know, and also to people I don't know, because why wouldn't I send them good wishes. Why on earth wouldn't I do that?
Would you permit me?
it's,
Would you permit me then to at least give you an anecdote to that, and hopefully something that will an antidote? Sorry,
Uh-oh, Kimmy's not happy with us. Kimmy's not happy with us.
Oh dear. Would have preferred to hear more about umbrellas, but hey ho, Kimmy, it wasn't our fault. We had too many guests in the first hour. I'm sorry. You know, we had to make way for everybody. But and also, I didn't want to let on the fact that the person who was supposed to be speaking to us at 1 o'clock dropped out. Anyway, let's not dwell on that. Sorry,
No,
Kimmy.
we had it's unfortunate, you know, people have lives and things happen. So one of our guests, I've completely forgotten that because I got so into the conversation. But one of our guests, late this morning, said, "Oh, sorry, everybody, can't come."
Yeah, it's fine.
It
happens.
I'm not being rude about it. It happens. It's life. They've got things to do. You know,
exactly the same way that we did last week. It's very simple. You don't take on a 3-hour program unless you are fully equipped and prepared to talk for 3 hours. It's as very simple as it really is as simple as that. Because otherwise, let's imagine what happens if the technology goes wrong. You're in a radio environment, suddenly everything fails. What do you think you're going to do? Sit back there and just relax until it's fixed? No, you keep going. You've got no choice. That's exactly the way it works. So we're sorry. We know we've gone on.
Now I'm getting bollocked. I'm not wearing black. Well, look, Chrissy, I've got black here. I can put that on like that.
Oh God!
I can tell you what. I tell you what's really interesting. It's Prince Philip's funeral tomorrow, and one thing that absolutely fascinated me, he designed in collaboration with Land Rover his own hearse, and tomorrow his coffin will be borne on a specially commissioned. You know, they love the Queen, bless her, and His Royal Highness Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, loved Land Rovers. They use them all the time, not to drop the kids off to school, because they use them for what they were designed for. And the actual hearse will be a special Land Rover 110. I think that's very fitting. What a guy to devise your own hearse and design it and know exactly what you want. I think that's absolutely admirable.
So will you let me give you this antidote? I was just saying about the predictive text messaging, one that sort of shows you that you should always check what your phone does actually say with predictive text. Because to those who are not of a Jewish background, you may not know the traditional Friday greeting before the Sabbath comes in is you would wish someone Shabbat Shalom, which in English translates to peaceful Sabbath. Okay, that's what you're wishing someone. And the fact that my phone clearly didn't know this in the early days and corrected someone I was wishing Shabbat Shalom to shut up your mum. And I pressed send before I realized that. I got in big trouble. So let me tell you that predictive text can be a nightmare. But anyway,
Leslie Demise, hang on, wait 1 second. Leslie Demise, to answer your point, we wore this for the photo. Yet she's so cheeky. She's so cocky now. She's had her second jab. Yeah. Right. Leslie Two Jabs Demise, as she's known. We wore this for the photograph. And then I actually we did all have other clothes because Lloyd brought them to the table. And I didn't wear it yesterday. It was just for the photograph. Thank you. Is it dry?
Good afternoon.
Hello.
How are we?
Very well indeed. I get the feeling there's a little bit of grumpiness south of the border today.
If I may say,
there's a little bit of dissent over very complicated moral and legal issues.
Is that what
we're not agreeing on?
Hey,
no,
if I may,
yes, I call it healthy debate. There
is only one possible response to that, and that is, "I'm not grumpy," which someone laughed a bit. It was hilarious. Anyhow. Right. Actually, I'll tell you exactly what that was, because that was on some television program. It was Zoe Wanamaker in My Family, the comedy program My Family. Her husband, Ben, played by the absolutely amazing Robert Lindsay, who can do no wrong.
Wolfie Smith. Wolfie Smith.
He apparently...
Wolfie Smith, indeed.
His comic timing in that flipping heck, he was just brilliant at that program. No wonder it went on for so long. But he turned to her and just sort of said, you seem a little grumpy today, darling. And she just turns around and says, I'm not grumpy. Brilliant. Anyway, right. Do you know what, Chantal? You being here can only possibly mean one thing. It's time. We didn't do this last week. I'm buzzing. It's time for this. Oh yes, we love TV, and thank heavens we love Chantal.
I'm doing a horticultural theme in case television executives are watching and want me to do, a gardening show.
Oh, I thought you were going to say. I think you were going to say television executor.
Me and Gemma Collins. It'd be me and Gemma Collins, gardening experts, with 3 minutes of background. Right.
Russell, don't you mean television executors?
Oh.
Chantal, for Christ's sake, don't.
There goes your TV career.
I've had enough. That was it. Yeah, yeah, that's all gone. That's all.
That hurt, but possibly true.
Right.
Well, I have been.
First of all, busy. You bet you've been busy.
No, I've been busy, but for the last hour and a half, I've been seriously worried about the grumpiness emanating from Hertfordshire and
Did you find
East London.
Did you find the savvy?
No, you're definitely today. You are grumpy.
Oh.
No, normally you're challenging. Today you're grumpy.
I apologize.
Anyway, it's really lovely to see you both.
It's very nice of you to enter the lion's den so willingly.
Now then. Records.
I'm having a lovely time. I'm feeling super relaxed.
Yes, because you
mainly because. No, well, actually, I waited until 7 hours after liftoff on Monday morning, jumped in a car and broke into North Wales legally. And I have been sitting on a beach in the sunshine for the last 4 days in North Wales, just soaking up and just feeling as though life is getting back to normal and things are wonderful.
I really need to come back to Wales.
Sunshine. I got soaked, absolutely drenched yesterday. Absolutely drenched. Right, what has come across your erudite eye?
Well, actually, I want to very quickly go back to the program that we were talking about right at the end of last week's show, because we spent a lot of time clearly talking about Prince Philip, and of course the coverage has raised an awful lot of issues in the press, which you may have seen.
Ooh.
But most particularly, we were talking very briefly about a documentary that was filmed with some Trappist monks in the UK. And for those that didn't catch it, I just wanted to reiterate what a beautiful documentary it was. It's about monastic brewing, which sounds completely weird. And Trappist monks are partly known for their brewing. I mean, if we think of Benedictine, clearly there isn't a brewing process for Benedictine, but we know where that lovely drink comes from. But they are known for their Trappist ales. And if I didn't quite make the point last week about this thing called brotherhood, the inner life of monks, it absolutely has to be seen, and it's on the BBC. So it was really just to pick up on that very quickly. But I'd be interested to know what you have thought about the coverage of Prince Philip in the last week, because there has been quite a lot of sort of argy-bargy going on about whether the coverage has been too saturated. And I'd really like your opinion.
Okay. It's a very.
Have you got yours formulated? Okay.
Have I got what?
Have you got your opinion formulated? Because if not, I'm gunning.
Well, yeah, I have got my opinion, and but being a Libran, wanting balance. Let's do that. Wanting balance. Out you go. Mini schnauzer alert.
You're listening to the program on BBC
You're
Radio.
listening. Hello, I'm Anna Webb. Now here's the thing. Woof 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 woof. Anna Webb. Right. Here's the thing. It had to be shown. Deference had to be given. It is kind of extraordinary that in the absolute entire history of the BBC, they have never received so many complaints ever ever about one thing. Over 100,000 people complained that various programs were dropped in preference to showing some gratitude for the service of His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh. Now, the other argument is this: the BBC has a number of channels, and what they could have done, it strikes me, is continued with the wall-to-wall coverage about Prince Philip, and put the other programming on some of the other channels. They have the ability to do that. And also, don't forget, I think I'm talking out of my backside here. What happens where could they go to iPlayer and watch what they like? Was iPlayer affected as well? Because I don't know the answer.
No, what you see, what you see on the BBC is the live output. So that carried on the iPlayer.
Yeah. So okay. Well,
Ed
let me.
Grossman is saying so. My view is. This is why I don't. This is the problem, Chantal. Why I don't watch news is because it's the same thing, repeated over. I've got it the first time. You don't have to keep repeating the thing. So I don't know. Is the answer.
Okay.
Whatever decision they made, Chantal, would have been wrong. Whichever way they went with it, they would have been criticised, and that's my view.
Right. Well, I don't think they did get it wrong, and it's not very often I say that about the BBC. The reason why I don't think they got it wrong is because as our national broadcaster, they are above everything else there to inform, educate, and in a third is entertain. Entertainment comes last in the mantra on purpose because that's not their primary role. Their primary role is to inform. And when as we discussed last week, category 1, that is a sort of a supreme royal, as it were. So we've got category 1s are Her Majesty the Queen, was the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Charles, Prince William, and I believe Prince George is also classed as category 1 as well. When a category 1 royal dies, there is no news that is more important, no program more important, no entertainment more important than anything to do with that. As a national broadcaster, it's their duty to make sure everybody knows that. And if by having the coverage on repeat continuously, so to make sure that as and when someone tunes into their television, don't take for granted that everyone has smartphones and an alert comes up. They don't. It's their duty to make sure that as and when everyone turns on their television, the first thing they see is that. That's what they are there for. That's their role. It's essential. And as far as I'm concerned, they got it spot on. There was nothing they could have put on any other channel which would have equaled the importance to be broadcast as that news on that day.
So where do you stand on it, Chantal? What's your professional opinion?
Well, I was very shocked by the number of complaints. That is absolutely unprecedented. And to me, it felt as though there was probably a little bit of a sea change from the last time we had a royal funeral to now, in that I think possibly people are less tolerant of maybe more Republican. I'm not entirely sure, but the fact that it was 120,000 people complaining, which, as you said, is a vast number of people, it worried me in terms of the audience's tolerance towards the royal family in the way that 50 years ago this would have felt completely appropriate, and probably to me didn't feel quite as appropriate any longer. But you know, I think it's a real tricky one. You're right.
I would say 1,000 people complained. Well, then out of the 62 million people in the UK, it means a hell of a lot didn't.
Yeah, but it is a marker. It is a bellwether of people not feeling terribly happy about the amount of coverage. I mean, I think it has to be recognised.
It's also because life has, whether we like it or not, moved on. In the 1950s, 60s, and I would say 70s, this discussion would never, ever have taken place. It would have been
No.
seen as completely inappropriate.
Absolutely right.
But people also have no attention span. You're living in the age where everything is instant gratification. This goes to education, this goes to studying, this goes to research. You know, everything has to be boom, like that. And many people would have said, well, Prince Philip died. Okay. I mean, there was a horrible quote from that. What's her name? I can't forget it. I'm not, Lily Allen. Oh, by the way.
Oh my God.
No, oh yeah, Prince Philip's dead. I mean, that. So you got that kind of attitude. And people, I think, are mentally set up, and I don't know where you stand on this, Chantal, they're mentally set up. Once they've heard news, okay, and they're moving on. Nothing has any impact anymore. Nothing has any. It won't matter what you said. It won't matter.
Yeah.
Anyway, there we are.
Anyway, you're right. There we are. And now for something completely different, as they used to say on television. Because there has been lots to watch on telly, but actually I've dug up a couple of new things. Clearly, a lot of new things were not broadcast last week because the schedules were just wiped clean and they started again. But I picked up something I think that, Russ, you and I talked about some time ago. And because I've been away on holiday, I actually had time to sit and find a few things that I've been waiting to watch sort of gently and quietly. And one of those, and forgive me if I've got the pronunciation wrong, is a wonderful, slightly soapy, slightly quirky Israeli drama called Shtisel.
You've not got that.
Is
That's
that the pronunciation?
Perfect pronunciation. Perfect. Perfect.
Right. I don't know whether you've seen it, but if you haven't seen it, you absolutely should. Israeli storytelling gets better and better and better. And this is about a strict Orthodox Haredi Jewish family in Jerusalem. And it's a sort of sophisticated, clever, well-written drama with actually rather soapy elements to it, which sort of suck you in. It's slow and purposeful, which is actually why it's so beautifully done. The acting is completely fantastic, and it's based around a family, the Shtisel family, and the father is a rabbi, and the mother has died. The younger son is looking for a wife. There's a lovely widow whose son is at the school where he teaches, but seemingly marrying a widow is not quite the dumb thing. There's another daughter who's in an unhappy marriage to a husband who, for some reason, seems to go off to work in Argentina. It's got all the sort of obvious threads and indeed the storytelling tropes that we recognize, but in a society that we just don't know.
It's curious you say, Chantal,
really worth watching.
Marrying a widow is not the done thing, because in certain strands of Orthodox Judaism, if you are religious enough, if you are widowed, then the widow is destined to marry the younger, so the next in line brother of the one who died. If they're religious enough, that's actually the destiny. That's what you would do to keep that family together. That's the, if you're that Orthodox, that was the sort of the destiny would happen. So I'm delighted to say that many Jews don't do that now, because it would just be gross. But even so, you know, it is still for some parts of the Orthodoxy. But I have to confess, I haven't watched it. And the reason why I haven't watched it, so it is on my watch list. But I really, really struggle to get to grips with watching programs that have subtitles. Because for me,
no, I don't. Not at all.
No, I tell you why.
I love it.
I tell you why. Is because I think if I want to read a book, I'll read a book. If I want to watch telly, I'll watch.
Not like no.
Better have both of them being merged together.
No, not having it. Not having it. It's not at all.
Here we go. He's off on.
Doesn't bother. No, it doesn't bother me in the least.
Because, do you know what? I could sneeze in the wrong direction today, Chantal. Seriously.
Shut up. It's because it cuts out so much brilliant entertainment and such wonderful stuff. You say I can't read subtitles. I watched an amazing. That's the point. You're taking out a load of stuff. Hello, sweetheart. Come on. I watched Phil. You watch it. You're missing out. Says Glassy Amanda. If you like thrillers, and then I'm coming back to you straight away. I was looking for a movie to watch, and there came one called Suicide. Don't worry, it's not about that.
Okay.
An Israeli thriller. Oh my God! It was when they say edge of the seat. There's not one dull scene. Set now. I think it's set in Jerusalem, and it's a police procedural thing. And the baddies are some of the nastiest. But I must warn you, if you find this film, it's on Netflix, called Suicide. There's a scene. Shut your eyes. Oh, I thought I was going to heave. I actually thought I thought my dinner was coming back. It is Shut Your Eyes for a particular scene. That's what I'm saying. Right, Chantal, what is next on the Ricard's list?
Okay, well, the next one is also something that you mentioned to me, Russ, and I felt I've got to watch this because a lot of people have told me about it. It actually dates from 2016, so it's been around a little while. And it's the lovely drama that you mentioned called River, with Nicola Walker and Stellan Skarsgård, which you said River. That you had watched back to back. And I thought, I'm going to
binge watched it, yeah.
You binge watched it. It's incredibly well done. Nicola Walker is a police detective, and Stellan Skarsgård is her partner, who clearly is a Swedish guy, but happens to be working for the police in London. But what you find out right at the very beginning, so I'm not really giving it away, and without telling you this, I'm not sort of telling you enough, really, is that Nicola Walker has just died. So his partner at the police station has just died. And he is having issues about getting through the sort of coping with her death. But she appears as a character because he sees her as a character in his life.
Yeah, she's completely three-dimensional, isn't she?
It's totally. But the story is very good. So there's a great police procedural at the bottom of all of this. There is a mystery as to how she has died. There is also a mystery as to why his life is as unsettled as it is. It's incredibly well written. It's written by Abby Morgan, who wrote The Hour, which was another BAFTA award-winning TV series that came out about 4 or 5 years ago. Really, really brilliant. It's very well written, very well observed, and completely.
How creepy is Eddie Marsden? How creepy
Eddie
is
Marsden?
Eddie Marsden?
Very creepy. When I was, and Phil probably won't remember the time clearly, but when I was a child, I was obsessed with a TV show called Randall and Hopkirk Deceased.
Randall and Hopkirk Deceased. Yes, I love that show.
Yeah. That was about two guys.
I was madly in love with her. I was a kid.
I just loved it.
Somebody.
And two guys, they were both dead, and they solved crimes. I mean, it was a completely
one was
outrageous
dead. No,
idea.
one was dead. One was dead.
One was dead.
His partner was dead, so he was always in a white suit, and the other one was very much alive. The other one always reminded me of Anthony Armstrong Jones, Prince Margaret's husband at the time, because he had that sort of look. And he kept saying, "Jeff, leave me alone, Jeff." Of course, everyone loved that show. Randall and Hopkirk Deceased. I loved that show. That was great. Yeah. So River is like Randall and Hopkirk's Deceased with knobs on, and very 2021. Ooh,
and the Stellan Skarsgård thing is that people think that he's talking to himself all the time, and actually it's sort of quite interesting, that idea of one's inner monologue, because not everybody has one. Some people have no inner monologue at all, so they don't talk to themselves, they don't hear their own voice. Most people do, but when they watch this lovely character that Stellan Skarsgård has created, they think that he's just a bit bonkers and that he's talking to himself.
Because he's also doing fighting.
I'm so pleased that most of us have an inner monologue, because I used to really worry that I'd listen to myself on the radio all the time. But anyway, that was brilliant.
Randall and Hopkirk. Francois Pascal says, "Oh gosh, Chantal, you're aging me. Randall and Hopkirk Deceased, my favourite series." Ours was Mind Your Language, he said. And also, Michael Verby, Marty was the one who was dead. Jeff was alive. Marty was dead.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And that was a lovely series.
Absolutely no idea what the hell you lot are on about. But anyway, keep going.
You weren't born. There you go. You weren't born.
No,
Never mind.
definitely, it's definitely worth
I'm
watching.
glad you liked it. I'm glad you liked.
Yeah.
I'm glad you liked it.
It's a short series. Definitely find it, search it out. I think it's on Netflix at the moment, but it was made by the BBC. Extremely well made program and beautifully written. So definitely worth watching.
I think it's 6 episodes, isn't it? If memory serves.
I think it is 6 episodes. Yeah, and it's called River.
I really can't remember.
Chantal,
What's his name is River.
Amanda is a bit concerned here. She says, "Can't find the Monks program. How? What was the title, please?"
It was called. I think did I say it was called Brotherhood?
I believe but
something like
the iPlayer. Is that right?
Hang on, I'll have to go up my screen to find it because it's written in front of me here on the left. Yes, just talk amongst yourselves for 2 seconds whilst I find it. It's called Brotherhood.
Brotherhood. There we go.
Brotherhood: Inner Life of Monks.
It's quite curious. The BBC seems to be getting an attack of conscience recently, where they want to explore as many different religions or angles on religions as possible. Because if you know, there was a program recently where I think it was called Being Jewish. The most recent one was Being Muslim. They're really exploring religion again for some reason at the moment. I'm just wondering what prompted that. But anyway.
That's very interesting. I mean, they may have a new head of religion. I don't know. Clearly, religious broadcasting is a whole other topic that we could talk about at some stage. You know, it depends on, there are things that the BBC is obliged to do. You know, it's a thing basically, but I haven't heard particularly that they are trying to do it, but clearly they should. They're educators, and I think they should be obliged to talk about faith.
Absolutely, to inform, to educate, that's what's drummed into us. Well, was when I worked.
Hopefully, we're having the Reverend Richard Coles on the show. He sent me a lovely message. Oh my gosh, I owe you an email! Exclamation mark. And Darcy, you're causing so many memories, Chantal. Darcy, Amanda, I was so in love with Marty in the white suit.
Oh, give me strength.
Yeah.
Back to 2021. What else can we watch?
The Persuaders. Right.
2021, brand new on Netflix, is a rather disturbing, but actually pretty good psychological thriller called Run.
Oh, yeah.
Which came out on Netflix about a week ago, I think, with Sarah Paulson, the actress who was in the O.J. Simpson trial. She's done so many things. She's won a lot of awards in recent years. She was in Ratched, which we talked about some time ago. As Nurse Ratched.
The Nurse Ratched thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and she plays a good baddie, is all I would say. It's a little bit like, if you remember the Kathy Bates film Misery with James Caan.
Yes.
Who is locked up in a room in a wheelchair. This is a story about a young girl in a wheelchair, and Sarah Paulson is her mother. And without wanting to give too much of the game away, not everything is quite as it seems, and it becomes quite. It's a great thriller. It's a little bit disturbing. I'm not going to tell you about the ending because I think that would be giving away way too much.
That would be infuriating.
Yeah. No. It was, the ending is definitely worth staying for, and the acting between mother and daughter, who clearly are very close at the beginning, but that closeness dissipates incredibly quickly for fairly obvious reasons. And whenever I see somebody who is disabled, I think, are they really disabled? So I will say no more other than it is intriguing. A well-written psychological thriller called Run. So, yeah.
Oh, you got me. You got my interest is peaked.
It's a little bit like, if you remember. It's definitely worth watching.
Oh, good. That sounds good. I love stuff like that. Did you see, by the way, I have a quick question to ask you with your professional hat on. Sunday's episode, spoiler alert, Sunday's episode of, I'm not going to say anyone who got killed or anything, one scene in Line of Duty Series 6, right? The shootout scene, I don't know if you've seen it. I've never seen anything like that on British TV. It was extraordinary. Extraordinary to have that on British TV.
Extremely well done. I was actually thinking exactly the same thing. they obviously had a fight director to do the fight scenes, and they were extremely well put together. I mean, as good as anything you would see in Hollywood. I mean, you're absolutely right to have picked that out, because I thought exactly the same thing. And the sound, if you listen to the sound in that
you know what it
scene as well.
It reminded me
Brilliant.
of Michael Mann's film Heat, in when they've robbed the bank and De Niro and everybody else come out, and Pacino's chasing them through the streets of LA. The sound on that is absolutely extraordinary. Extraordinary.
Yeah.
Anyway, there we are. I just wanted to say that I'd not seen such a huge action scene in I'm not talking about Game of Thrones stuff, but in a police procedural drama. To have that, it was right up there. Right up there.
No, I am still enjoying Line of Duty. I know there are a few people sort of mithering, as the Yorkshire folk might say, about the fact that they don't think it's quite as good as previous series. But I'm sticking with it. I'm a fan, so I'm going to stay with it to the end.
You know, I rediscovered.
Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say that I rediscovered recently, and I think this is also on Netflix at the moment, a program that David Attenborough made ages ago for the BBC called Our Planet.
Yes. Yeah.
It is shot in the most stunning way. Seriously. I mean, I don't know. It's for some reason, David Attenborough's programs always seem to have the most sensational cinematography to it. Just, I don't know how they do what they do, but my God, it's a masterpiece. And just, it's topped off with his incredible and legendary dulcet tones. But if you've never got round to watching Our Planet, please watch it, because it's like looking at artwork on your television. It's the only way I can describe it.
Beautiful. It's beautiful. Kimmy Lashmar says, Chantel, sorry, she says, incredible acting in Too Close, a 3-parter this week. I've seen them pushing it too close. They've been pushing this series too close. I haven't seen it.
Right.
Thank you. One to watch.
Excellent. Right. I will look up that.
And what else? Because I know you're so diligent in your research. So what else?
Well, something I came across, because actually, rather bizarrely, I don't sleep very well. But I think there's, sleeping well and sleeping efficiently are sort of two different things. I get enough sleep, but I get it in rather sort of broken chunks. But there's a rather good 2-part documentary series on Channel 5 that I missed whenever it came out, called The Science of Sleep. I think it came out about 2 years ago.
Yes.
Fronted by Gary Roslin. Yeah, and Amir Khan, both presenters that I really like. They do lots of different sleep experiments, lots of experiments around snoring, which I always find completely fascinating for no apparent reason other than why do people snore as loudly as they do the older they get?
To piss off your partner, that's why. That's exactly why. Just to piss them off. Even when you're asleep, you can piss them off. It's a win-win.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking earlier on, you were talking about, those little irritating sounds that your partner might make that after 9 months in lockdown are driving you absolutely batty. Well, snoring is exactly one of those things that people become very intolerant towards the partner's snoring. So if you snore, or if you don't sleep terribly well, it's definitely worth watching, and it's on the My5 app at the moment. So that's another one to go for. It's interesting. Even if you do sleep well, it's still very interesting to see how it affects other people.
It was good. I recall. Funnily enough, I recall it because I recall it, and I did enjoy it because I watch anything like that. As we head to the top of the hour, some sneaky quick ones.
Yes, there's a very good documentary series. If you like crime documentary series about unsolved crimes, there's a very good one on it's again, I'm afraid it's Netflix, and it's about a very peculiar mystery from the 1970s in Iceland. And what is the name of it? I didn't write it down. I will put it. I'll put it on the site because the name has completely my mind. I will put it on the site. Well, it's worth watching because
Iceland police in Iceland. Can't be many of them.
Chantal, is it called Out of Thin Air?
It is called Out of Thin Air. Well done.
Just to make sure you got that in there. Thank you, Dr. Google, and thank you, Chantal. You're amazing as ever.
Enjoy your break. Enjoy your break, Yakida.
Will do.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye. Bye.
Go. I think she's going to say nice to see you. I'm so sorry I cut her off in the prime there, but thank you. It's nice to see you as well. That's it for today. Thank you so much to absolutely everybody who's taken part in this program. It's been
Extraordinary show. Thank you for putting up with our debate. And we will do this all again. Philip, if you could do it, would you be available on Monday?
I'll give it my best shot, but just in case, just to say thank you to Amanda Griffiths, to Keith Tunstall, to Simon, also to Chantal Rickards as well, and of course, thank you very much to Simon Hamilton. Sorry, thank you
for
very
your
much.
amazing comments. These fantastic comments that they hit off at exactly 11 a.m. and go right through the show. Bless you for that. Really, really appreciate it. Really, really good. Anyway, thank you for your love. Thank you for your support. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Have a good weekend. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.